I will provide the background discussion and then the recommended action. Background discussion: on April 29th, 1992, the district was considering the issuance of certificates of participation to enable it to construct an adult school on Childs Avenue. In preparation for that endeavor, the district formed a corporation to which it could lease the facilities being constructed through the use of COPs. The district has discussed the use of COPs to fund improvements to existing schools and to purchase school sites. State law requires such corporations to meet at least once annually. The district may wish to issue COPs in the future and use the authority of the corporation for such purpose. The nonprofit corporation should meet to comply with the state law. The previous designation of offices is as follows: President, Aaron Ham; Vice President, Tiffany Pickle; Chief Financial Officer, John Swigert; Secretary, Alan Peterson; Assistant Secretary, Richard Lopez. Alternatives are identified. Opposition: the alternative is not to hold the annual meeting and to allow the corporation to lapse. This is not recommended due to the potential need for issuance of COPs in the future. There is no identified opposition to maintaining the corporation, and there are no financial implications at this time. Recommended action: the Secretary of Merced Union High School District Capital Facilities Corporation. I'm sorry, let me back up. The Secretary should probably proceed with reading this.
No, you go.
Okay. The Secretary of the Merced Union High School District Capital Facilities Corporation recommends that the Board of Directors conduct an annual meeting to designate the officers of the corporation.
Well, I'll make a motion, if possible, to just keep all the officers the same. Can we do that, Melissa?
Yes.
Okay, for the upcoming school year, or next year, whatever.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Is everyone okay with that? I mean, John's not here, but I mean, I'm okay with that. It was a lot of work this year, I'm going to be honest. Aaron might not want to do that. I'm teasing. Okay. All in
want to do that?
It's fine.
Sorry.
I'll second. And we'll just take a verbal vote. Hand. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And John's not here, so
Okay,
for
okay, so you need to adjourn, Mrs.
I call the meeting adjourned at 5:55 p.m.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Ham.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue with our regular agenda. The board did meet in closed session and took the following action. In closed session, the board took action to issue a notice of non-reelection and/or release to 23 probationary and temporary teachers pursuant to Education Code Section 44929.21B and 44954B, effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year, and directed the superintendent or designee to send out appropriate legal notices. The roll call vote was as follows: 4 ayes and 1 no. And with that, we will reconvene to open session at,
Mrs. Pickle?
yes.
The vote needs to be roll call, so can you please tell us who voted aye and who voted no, please?
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Lopez was an aye. Mrs. Ham was an aye. Mr. Swigert was an aye. Tiffany Pickle was aye. Mr. Valdez was a no.
Thank you.
And with that, we will reconvene to open session at 5:57. Okay. So we will all stand for the flag salute, please. Mr. Peterson, do you want to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, and we'll call for a vote.
I am an aye, Mr. Rohrbach.
Aye. I'm an aye also, Mrs. Rohrbach. I'm not signed in.
Hold on a minute.
It's 4-0 with Mr. Trustee Swigart being not present.
Yes, Trustee Swigart did have to step out for another commitment, but he will join us when he's able to. Okay. And then with that, we have a showcase with Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, President Pickle, Superintendent Peterson, board members, cabinet, Mrs. Rohrbach, and the MUHSD community. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Viviana Barajas, our NHA consultant and colleague. She and the whole NHA team have put together a short presentation and video about the impact NHA and our mental health classes have had on the campus, as told by our students. Mrs. Barajas.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Let me take a good look at all of you for a second, and then I'm going to be concise. So I will be reading, which is out of character for me, but in the for time purposes. Good evening, members of the board, President, Superintendent Peterson, and Cabinet. I am so honored to be with you all today to showcase the incredible impact that our work integrating the Nurtured Heart approach at Yosemite High School over the last 3 years has had on our students, staff, and community. This work has consisted of training every valuable adult member of that school community, including all classified and certificated staff, infusing the relational tools of the Nurtured Heart approach into our interactions and teaching, and more specifically in the youth-led creation of a series of mental health classes, all taught by certified Nurtured Heart approach trainer teachers. These courses, currently 5 sections offered, have provided a space where our students can learn the Nurtured Heart approach themselves, which provides them with the essential insight on the way that they connect to themselves and the world. The Nurtured Heart approach provides a shared language and tools to create a new pathway to connecting. It helps us to reset from old patterns of negativity and creates a new default setting where we scan the world for the positive. It increases self-awareness and awareness of others and allows students to live out firsthand experiences of being socially skilled, emotionally intelligent, collaborative learners. In addition, it provides tools that they need to understand the teenage brain and how it relates to their mental health. Addressing mental health has always been an important consideration in educational environments, but it has never been a more crucial time to provide this education through meaningful connections and relationships than it is now. Yosemite High School's mental health classes have offered our students hope and a way to feel empowered in a time where most of us have felt powerless. The video experience that you're about to witness, like Mr. Rogers said, highlights the impact of this work through the lens of our students. So make sure everyone can see my screen. Are we good? Okay, here's the video. Sorry.
Young children in March through October of this year was up 24% from the same period in 2019. That's according to the CDC. And visits among adolescents increased by 31%.
We're noticing a lot more anxiety, a lot more preoccupation with what's going to come next.
Katie Chadwell, a child and adolescent therapist at the Clara Center for Families in Waco, says the disruptions to daily life and school all play a role in the negative effect on children's mental health.
The mental health class at Yosemite High has helped me a lot. It was hard for me to focus and everything. I felt like no one really understood how I felt in class. And then I started doing the mental health class, and then I realized that there was other kids there who also went through things like me. And being in the mental health class, it actually helped me learn a lot about my mental illnesses and how to control them. It should be taught at every high school because honestly, a lot of kids don't know how to deal with it. And they might think, being in some classes, there's some teachers who don't know how to deal with what the other kids are going through. I believe if they had a mental healthness class, that they can go there and they can be themselves and learn how to control it and know that it doesn't define them and that there's other people who are just like them and that there are teachers who care and that want to help them and know what they're going through.
In youth mental health wellness and advocacy, we learn about mental health stigmas, how to be advocates for breaking mental health stigmas. We learn about living with mental illness or mental disorders, the teenage brain, and I think one of the most valuable things that we learn about are adverse childhood experiences.
So when I learned about what trauma does to the teenage brain, I learned that everything I was feeling was literally normal. And I was tripping for no reason, but I just didn't know it. So going through that topic that week, it gave me so much relief. And I remember like when everything clicked, it was like an awe moment, like my eyes lit up. So after that, I just kind of went through like a spiritual growth of understanding myself and understanding who I am. And it wasn't overnight. It took a couple months, but I understood. One of the other topics I'm extremely grateful for learning, it was an exercise that we did when we were learning about panic attacks and anxiety attacks and things like that. We learned it was like a breathing method, and we take a deep breath in and we hold it in for like 30 seconds. And I remember we practiced it as a class, and the whole energy of the room kind of elevated into a more subtle, calming energy. And I still practice it today. Like at work, like people be making me tight, and I be having to just and hold it in and just think positive thoughts and remind myself where I am. And it's like a reset. So that's something that I still use.
Being in this mental health class has helped me with my mental health, and I've learned more about myself, and it's also helped me stay positive during the COVID pandemic. I also like learning about the nurtured heart approach. A really good class, and I think every high school should have it available.
I'll be in it for as long as you like. And no matter what you and I do, whatever comes next, I'll be right there beside you. 'Cause I'm right where I wanna be. I'll be right there beside you. I know right where I wanna be. I'll be right there beside you. This way, and it feels like we're sinking, but things will get better. We'll hang on together, okay? And I'll be going nowhere. I'll be in it with you, honey, I swear. And no matter what you and I do, whatever comes next, I'll be right there beside you. Beside
Hi, my name is Deja, and just by being in one of Yosemite's mental health classes, I feel like it has made a positive effect on me and the way I have been thinking lately through these rough times. And I feel like it's a great class to be in.
The connection of mental health and education needs to be included 100%. When I was at a comp site, and I had PTSD since I was 3. So when I was at a comp site, it's different than being at Yosemite because these teachers at Yosemite, they know and they work with you a little differently, and mental illnesses aren't just like having panic attacks and freaking out like people think they are. They're having attention disorders. Like me, myself, I cannot pay attention for anything. Like I'm very easily distracted. It's hard for me to process things, not because I'm dumb, just because I got a lot going on in my brain. My brain's a little different from the norm. And truthfully, I think it needs to be incorporated in every high school because every kid goes through something. Like nobody's life is perfect. They don't have to got beat up by their parents or not have their parents. Everybody has gone through something traumatic that affects the way they learn. Everybody learns differently. And if we as school, if the teachers and the staff members kind of just take the time to understand, the effects of a mental illness, it could change the way they teach and the way they elaborate and the way they can have one-on-one connections with their students.
I'll be in it for as long as you like. And no matter what you and I do, whatever comes next, I'll be right there beside you. 'Cause I'm right where I wanna be. I'll be right there beside
I want to thank Viviana Fuentes for being so masterful in capturing the essence of what our students and team wanted to convey. I also wanted to briefly in the next minute just highlight the work of the incredible team of Nurtured Heart trainers at Yosemite High School. We have a group of 12 who have committed countless hours above and beyond towards deepening the understanding and providing support to our entire YHS family on the tools of the Nurtured Heart approach. This year alone, we collaborated on 2 staff meetings, notching up the skills of engagement through recognitions and adding a bit of laughter into a very stressful time. Our entire Yosemite High School family, certified or not in the approach, are an essential piece, right? They're essential pieces to our collective wellness and to the success of our students. So thank you, go Dragons. Every Tuesday, our team of 12, the Dream Team, meet to address and identify ways to further integrate Nurtured Heart into the fabric of who we are. We examine the areas that relationships can make all the difference, like in the way that we conduct SSTs, 504s, and IEP meetings, and also in creating and sharing resources to help other sites as we work on expanding the reach of the approach. We are currently in the middle of our parent workshop offering at East Campus. And these parent workshops that we've done have provided our parents with a way to learn this shared language so that we're all rowing in the same direction. If you haven't already, please check out the comments I've shared with the board coming from parents. It has been a truly transformational tool to offer to parents who are struggling to stay above water, which is all of us, myself included. I want to thank the over 150 participants in the workshop since October of parents so far, and I'm excited to continue to grow our capacity to deepen relationships and connections, which we know are the springboard to learning and to wellness. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to questions, keeping in mind that Mr. Torrin Johnson will be presenting later to discuss, district implementation of Nurtured Heart approach. So I will take questions right now on the showcase.
Any questions?
Well, Viviana, thank you very much for the work. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's really awesome. And as a parent, I love getting the invitations. I haven't yet made the time. One more Zoom after all these long days, right? But I really hope to soon. I think it's phenomenal that you're offering it out to families. Thank you.
Yes, there will be one coming in person in April. So hope to see you there.
Great job,
Okay.
Viviana Barajas. I also would like to attend. I haven't made it either. I've been wanting to, but I haven't. So hopefully the April one, I might be able to make it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Viviana. Okay, with that, we'll move on to principal's report.
Anything else from Mr. Rogers?
Oh,
That's it, right?
principal's report, yes, with Mr. Rogers, yes.
Thank you. As you've just seen and heard, NHA is an approach that's securing and investing in positive inner wealth of students and staff. You can see evidence of nurture a heart on the campus when you witness students giving positive affirmation to one another and or to the teacher. This year, I've given the Nurtured Heart team dedicated time to meet during collaboration. I added a TSA period for a team member to be a resource to other faculty to support them implementing Nurtured Heart in their classes and get the behind the scenes work done to continue to move Nurtured Heart forward. We have completed NHA focused walkthroughs with teachers of both Yosemite and Sequoia so they can learn from one another the best practices to use and what NHA looks like in the classroom. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our student leadership under the guidance of Ms. Azevedo. They have been instrumental in raising awareness around mental health and motivating their fellow classmates to do well during this pandemic. Some of their efforts include the Friday Screen Challenge, when they challenge each other to turn their cameras on. A personal letter to you written by the team to students to let them know that they're not alone when experiencing anxiety or depression. They have done a variety of motivational videos, raised awareness around being healthy and following COVID protocols, and have helped plan our Dynamite Dragons recognition events. We recently held our empathy interviews with Mr. Boykin and Mr. Johnson. The responses we received have validated our student-centered relationship approach with students. Students universally report that they feel most connected when teachers take the time to get to know them. The Nurtured Heart approach naturally supports these efforts. That concludes my report to the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Rogers?
Will you have students back on campus next week?
I will, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, and your staff.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to reports and discussions. Senior awards night and graduation ceremony update. Dr. Aguilar.
What about public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. I'm sorry.
Way down to the bottom of the.
Yes, I'm sorry. I skipped that. My apologies. Public comment. Mrs. Rohrbach. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Unigas and I are going to take turns at reading the public comment. Mr. Unigas, would you like to start?
Sure, I can do that. All right. So the first one is from the Black Parallel School Board. MUHSD staff, board, and fellow community members, I am Estella Dunn of the Merced Black Parallel School Board. Thank you for allowing me to make this comment. In response to vocal calls to remove school resource officers from area schools, the Merced Black Parallel School Board undertook a study of negative police-student interactions in 4 Merced area school districts. The report for the Merced Union High School District has been given to district administration and the Board of Trustees. The MUHSD School Resource Officer Student Interactions Report is available to anyone in the district or community by contacting the Black Parallel School Board at Merced Black Parallel School Board @gmail.com. Thank you.
I'm going to pull my mouse down while I read these. I think it makes it easier to understand. The next comment is from Andrea Lanconi, and she says, my question to the board is, why can't bands play? There are quite a few surrounding districts, even schools, that are allowing their band members to play. Sports and cheer are both back, which is great, but most of those students and coaches are not social distancing or wearing masks. Why is it okay, but our band students cannot play an instrument? I don't say that to take away from those students, but it truly is not fair. This past year has been challenging for all of us, especially our kids, and continuing to take these extracurricular activities away is killing them. It should be up to the parent. If you want your child to play when they go back to school, they should be able to. Those parents who do not want their children playing or attending in-person school, that is their choice. Stand up and do what is right for all students, not just one or two groups. Thank you.
Next one is from Rocio Maldonado. Good morning. It is my understanding that upon the return of students on campus, students will not be allowed to participate in playing or singing of any kind. Being a parent of a choir student, I have seen the internal struggles my daughter has faced not being able to sing in person with her classmates and get that live feedback from her teacher. While Mr. Flores has done a fantastic job keeping his students motivated during these unprecedented times, students should be given the opportunity to sing or play on campus. Just as it has been seen with athletics, if students follow all safety guidelines, this is also an experience that should not be stripped away from our students. Thank you.
The next comment is from Nandani Patel. She says, my name is Nandani Patel and I attend AHS. I am a senior this year and I am currently serving as band president. Band has played a major role in my high school life, from football games to competitions. I love playing with the Atwater Band and Guard and Choir. Having said that, it would mean the world to not only the seniors, but to the entire band and choir to have the chance to play before we send the seniors off. We would all appreciate the opportunity to play, and it would help us start to see the light at the end of this pandemic. Please let us play. Mr. Flores has always been so cautious during these times that playing at home is not for everyone. Playing in school would give everyone the opportunity to pick their instruments back up and get back to the groove of playing again. We would continue to follow all precautions and ensure that safety of all students that are playing. Please let us play. Thank you.
Next one is from Sarah Hansard. Dear MUHSD board members and Superintendent Peterson, many districts in surrounding counties and even one in our own county are allowing band students to play instruments and conduct choir practice outdoors with social distancing protocols and proper PPE. Why hasn't MUHSD followed suit in doing what's best for our students? The superintendent's welcome statement on the MUHSD website says our principals and staff understand that athletics, band, drama, ag, student leadership, campus clubs, and community service are foundational to developing students of character, grit, and civic responsibility. Why are band and choir being overlooked in reopening plans? There is no equity in the decision being made to return to sports conditioning and games while band and choir are kept on the sidelines. Involvement in the arts is associated with gains in math, reading, cognitive ability, critical thinking, and verbal skills. Arts learning can also improve motivation, concentration, confidence, and teamwork. The band and choir directors at every school site have worked incredibly hard to build their programs, keep students engaged, and move their learning forward. However, they can only do so much before students become frustrated at being restricted from playing and inevitably drop out of band and choir. We have award-winning music programs, but maintaining this high level of achievement is being hampered by the board's failure to create a plan to allow these students to practice their craft in person. I beseech you to remedy this inequity and allow our students and their hardworking teachers to have their moment to shine after so much darkness. Sincerely, Sarah Hansard.
The next comment is from Patricia Bestchart. This is my first time addressing the board, and I am writing to ask the board to please allow the band and choir students to play and sing in person. Other districts are allowing this. Let them play or sing outside, distanced, but let them play. My daughter is a senior, first chair of French horn. They have already lost last year's concert season and this year's marching season. Let them play. Music has helped keep my daughter focused during school. She has played since 5th grade. Band was always something that motivated her to keep her grades up because she loves to play and perform. But since this started, I have watched her struggle. I have watched as every event and milestone she looked forward to during her senior year has been taken away. No homecoming, no prom, no senior marching season. Let them play. I am a nurse and I understand your concerns, but I am concerned about the damage done to our children while they are isolated. Sports have been able to start. How can you consider music more dangerous than football? Please let them play.
Next is from Leah Brown. Dear MUHSD board members, I'm the parent of a sophomore at Merced High School. He has been in baseball and band since he could toss a ball and blow a horn. I am writing to advocate for band students. I do not feel that the district has been equitable in their decision not to return the band students to practice on campus. All sports are now open for our kids, and it's time for band to follow suit. The kids can be distanced and still play. Other school bands are playing on campus, some with enhanced PPE like masks and slits in them for blowing an instrument, and cut up pantyhose placed as bell covers on horns. Where is the science showing that playing instruments can increase the spread of COVID any more than other approved sports on campus like high contact football? Our kids are not in a high risk age group. Our teachers are getting vaccinated. High contact in all sports on campus. Our rates of infection and positivity or COVID are decreasing in Merced County. It is time to be more equitable towards band and allow on-campus practice.
The next comment is from Denise Bryce. Denise says, I would like to say something on the band and choir topic. I believe these children who are in band and choir should not be punished during this pandemic. At first, it was understandable until I started watching all athletics get to work out and compete without masks or even sometimes social distancing. Why are they getting to move on with their academics and electives, but band is being punished, in my view? Band is getting graded on participation when they can't participate. These children who can play instruments together can do more than what is required for social distancing than any other activity. For goodness sakes, they have a football field or quad to practice safely on. Thank you.
Next is from Amy Van. Good afternoon. I would like to voice my support for allowing the band and choir students to play their wind instruments and sing outdoors. Since students will be back on campus starting Monday, now is the perfect time to allow these kids to play, practice, and perform. There was a big push with the athletes to let them play. Now it's time to give the same allowance to the band students. Please let them play.
The next comment is from Chi Wood. She says, as you may not know, our bands have been sidelined since the shutdown began last March. The drum corps and color guards have been allowed to begin practicing. However, the regular band members have been stuck with Zoom. It is my understanding that there are masks for instruments that have not been made available up to now. Meanwhile, football players can practice without masks and distancing. What is wrong with this picture? The lawsuit in Southern California bypassed the state and local health requirements. Local health departments. I believe that I read that band was also mentioned in the lawsuit decision. It is imperative that our band students be allowed to have the same privileges that athletics have. They need to be able to practice and play their instruments together and not on Zoom. Our students have missed out on so many competitions, concerts, award ceremonies, athletic events, and just being together. Football games are imminent, and the band needs to be there supporting their schools and teams. We need your support to help get our band members' lives a bit closer to normal.
All right, next comment is from Devon Hilliard. Excuse me. My name is Devon Hilliard. Oh wait, good evening school board. My name is Devon Hilliard and I am the founder of Students with Aspiring Goals, also known as SWAG. SWAG is a nonprofit organization in Merced County that prepares student athletes for college admission through academics, mentorship, and national exposure. This email is coming from me as a community member and as a parent. This email is in regards to the firing of El Capitan's girls basketball coach, Tyler Rogers. I had an opportunity to observe Tyler from the outside while he was coaching his team a couple of years ago. I reached out to Tyler about one of his alumni, Amaya Irvin, who is currently at Holy Names on a basketball scholarship. After requesting necessary information that the head coach from Holy Names was requesting, Coach Rogers got it to me quickly. This indeed played a role in getting Amaya to Holy Names. I have observed Coach Rogers push his current girls and ex-players to college in a way I haven't seen in this area for a long time. I had an opportunity to work with Tyler this past summer when he assisted our SWAG girls basketball program. He assisted in coaching 20 girls from 8 different schools in the area. He treated every girl as if she played for his program. He coached my daughter, who was a student at Stone Ridge Christian School last year, and now she is currently finishing her senior year at Rock Springs High School in Texas. She committed to Dallas Christian College to continue her academic and athletic career. As a parent, I have seen Coach Rogers push my daughter to her limits and reinforce academics and high-level basketball. He created an elite girls basketball program for elementary and middle school age girls for El Capitan High School. He has engaged in community service with his current El Capitan High School girls. It is coaches like this that we need in the Merced Union High School District. I am not sure what transpired in the firing of Coach Rogers, but I am here to support Coach Rogers as I have seen him in action. I am asking for leniency for Mr. Rogers and possibly reprimand him in a way that the girls basketball program will not suffer. I have had contact with many coaches, and he is a coach that is good for the area. Thank you for your time and support during these tough times for everyone.
And our last comment is from Heather Garner. She says, my name is Heather Garner. I am blessed to be the mother of 3 Atwater High students. I am here tonight advocating not only on their behalf, but for the entire Atwater High School music program and all music programs in our district. With classes starting back on campus March 15th, it is our sincere desire, with safety in the forefront, that band and choir classes be allowed to play their instruments and sing in person while following all social distancing protocols and using required PPE. We understand that the band will not be able to function as it did before COVID, but just as the district has allowed sports teams to find new ways to adapt to our current circumstances, our music programs are humbly asking for the same opportunity. Students can play instruments and sing outside while practicing social distancing and wearing PPE. Our students are adaptable and willing to do whatever it takes to begin playing again. My daughter is a senior, and it would give her and all band seniors great joy to play together one more time before they walk across the graduation stage. Let us strive as a district to give them this. We would truly appreciate your consideration in this matter. Thank you for your time.
Is that the last one?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle, I'm going to comment on this in my report, but for those folks that don't want to stick around for that, I'm going to quickly say that everyone in this room, I believe, agrees with all of those comments. The process is that we turn in a request to the county, and the county okays that request. We received the okay for band at about 12 o'clock today. So on Monday, they will be able to sing, they will be able to play all instruments, but there will need to be adjustments, and Mr. Calderon will share that information with all of our band instructors. So it's a go for band.
All right, that's great. If you could see us, you'd see we're all smiling. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Peterson. Thank you. Thank you for.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for sharing that right now before some people drop off.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for your comments. And again, my apologies for skipping over that. So now we'll move on to reports and discussions with Dr. Aguilar.
Thank you, President Pickle. If you bear with me here, I'm going to hopefully successfully share my screen. All right, there we go. Tonight I'd like to give you an update as to where we are in the Merced Union High School District with the upcoming scholarship night and our graduation commencement ceremonies. For our graduation night and graduation ceremonies, I want to inform you that Plan A is to have our normal traditional ceremonies as we have typically had over the past years. Plan B would be to have small groups in pods and conduct our graduation ceremonies and awards night. And Plan C would be to conduct our ceremonies like we did last year in a drive-through manner. we want to make sure that there's equality among ceremonies. So all ceremonies will be the same. For example, I'm meeting with principals this Friday, and we've made it pretty clear, or very clear to all our principals, that whatever one campus does, the other campus is going to do, so that we have equality among our districts with regard to the format and the style of all the ceremonies. So that discussion will happen on Friday. Again, decisions will be made in collaboration with our county health department, as Superintendent Peterson just said. Our number one goal would be to, again, have our traditional ceremonies and as we typically have had. So when we meet with principals this Friday, we're going to ask them to put together, a few plans. So we want to, go with what we traditionally do. Plan B would be in our small groups of parents in a live setting, and then again the third option would be that drive-through. But I want to make sure that, again, I emphasize that we want equality across the district. All of our principals will work together and ensure that the format is equal among our district. The dates for the awards nights are as follows. We're still working on the exact time, but all of these are the awards nights. I believe Ms. Rohrbach has them on the calendar, and all of our board members here will be invited regardless of the format that we have.
Can I ask on these? Obviously, it seems like the later we get, the more open and the more opportunities we'll have. I just, it also seems like we kind of know about 2 weeks in advance that things are going to open up. If it meant delaying some of the earlier scheduled ones so that they could be in person and a little more robust, can we try to accommodate that so that, Atwater, Merced High, and Yosemite have them later, so you get my drift, right? If that's an option, just to try and give our seniors everywhere something.
How close would you need to be to that date to make those changes? Because obviously invitations have to go out and so forth.
Yeah, the big part of this is that we do have Gina Lance and Randy Ruiz, who run, and along with their team, that work with all of our community organizations to get folks there and to schedule. And then we also don't want to interfere with anything else that perhaps may be happening on the campuses. So a lot of these dates, or actually these dates were given to principals. They gave us dates that would work with them. But yes, as things start opening up, I'm sure we can do everything we possibly can to push it back.
I get it, and it's a really special night. It's amazing how the community comes together and all the different folks who are there to hand out scholarships and whatnot. So I would hate to take any of that away, but at the same time, the seniors have missed out on so much. So if there's any chance of doing that, I volunteer Tiffany and Richard and Julio to attend every single ceremony on behalf of those who can't be there. I'll go too.
I will definitely do my best. But if you were up to say, because this is going to be based on what the tiers are, and of course what the guidelines are at the time. So if it were, say, changed a week before the date, then we could flip the mode of the actual awards night, correct?
Yeah, so when I meet with the sites, we want to put all three plans together just for that very reason.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden, something changes, dramatically, we want to be able to, do what we traditionally do. And if not, go to plan B. And of course, if things get worse, we have, plan C in place.
Yeah, so just flip the switch when it,
It just would be terrible if Livingston had to do it online, but then things were open by the 21st, and we told Yosemite High, sorry, even though it's open, we're having to do the exact same thing that we did for the other schools. You know what I mean?
I would think the worst it would be is, it's gonna be plan A or plan B.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see it being C.
Okay. Any other questions or? Okay. Thank Thank you, Dr. Aguilar. Learning innovation with Mrs. Garman.
Good evening, President Pickle and everyone else participating this evening. Take over here. So last month, we were talking about exploring opportunities for students through the possible development of a virtual academy. This type of initiative is a large undertaking requiring a strategic process in order to result in the best outcome that's sustainable. If nothing else, this pandemic has in the least served as kind of a catalyst for schools to really reimagine the educational experience for our students. So with that, the process undertaken, the strategic process that we're working through is the design thinking process, where the research phase is the very beginning and latest best practices are considered and looked at, and historical practices and trends for the future and all these things, all these notes and data pieces are gathered. And that has started in the last 6 weeks or so leading up to the February board meeting. And from there, we move into what's called the empathize stage of the process, where really the end user experience is looked into and investigated. And that's where we're getting a lot of feedback from people living it, breathing it, practicing it, whatever it is, to really understand the context of the situation in which they're dealing and working. And so that took place after that February board meeting with a series of stakeholder sessions to get that kind of view, the context with which people are dealing regarding online learning. And so meetings were held with all of these different stakeholder groups. And there was a student survey distributed to kind of round that out. I received about 750 student responses to some questions they were asked. And those were all very good meetings, generating about 12 to 15 pages of notes and feedback that people shared regarding online learning topics such as these. These are the areas in which I asked stakeholders to consider and think about what we've been doing, how can things be improved? You know, if I knew then what I know now, this is what I would do differently. All that kind of thinking was what I was trying to prompt and elicit ideas around, and for which they were providing feedback. And there's a lot of big umbrella categories there that you can see, and that is not an all-inclusive list either of what needs to be considered with this kind of undertaking, but this is where we started. So I asked people to really think about, in a perfect world, to design this structure for the betterment of our students' educational experience. What can you tell me? What can we share? What do you think the priorities are for families, for parents, for students, for our staff, all those things? And that generated all of the input that I gathered. So with the research phase initially started, and it is kind of an ongoing process as things continue to evolve and improve and develop. That's kind of low key continuing in the background. And the empathize phase kind of completed with the initial outreach for input. We're now at a point where we're looking to really define what is the data and feedback telling us at this point. What are the guiding principles going to be for what we're trying to develop? We use the data so that it's a true collaborative effort. Everyone's voice has been noted. As I said, I have lots of feedback to consider. And what it's pointing us at is the need to really be thinking beyond just the 2021-22 school year to a post-pandemic time where we can create and offer an innovative solution for our students that's more personalized learning experience for all of their diverse needs. So as it stands now, a virtual academy, as discussed last month, might not help us reach a sustainable longer-term goal. That said, we are proceeding with the pilot opportunity with our teachers. The pilot teachers have been identified. There are 8 of them across multiple sites and multiple content areas. And they are beginning tomorrow, in fact, with their first round of training through the platform that we're going to look at for possible use moving forward for a longer term goal that we're trying to achieve. And so that's going to continue through March, and an advisory committee is still going to be formed. And hopefully in the coming weeks or very shortly, maybe even by next month, it depends. We're trying to stay true to the process. We hope to bring forth a plan for your consideration that would speak to a longer term goal that's sustainable for our students, really in a reimagined way. So that is the update of what's happened and where we are. Do you have any questions for me or comments at this time?
Any questions? No. Valdez, any questions?
No, very good presentation, Ms. Norman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Garman.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to facilities update with Mr. Calderon.
Good evening, President Pickle. I'm not going to share my screen. I'm going to have Leslie.
For anyone who's listening, watching, what have you, a bunch of us are in the same room, but you can't tell. We're socially distanced, and then Julio's called in, but the rest of us are all in the same room. So sometimes we're looking at them while they're presenting, and you might be wondering why we're not looking at the screen. Or
where our eyes are going.
Great point.
Yeah.
It is. Thank you.
Okay, so let me preface tonight with before I take you through this journey, that when we look at the completed, we're going to do a similar presentation, much like the one we did in October or November. And it will kind of outline completed facilities, current facility projects that are in route, and then planned future projects. It takes quite some time, depending on the size of the project. It could take up to 6 months to a year to take on a project of any significant complexity. And in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to invest that amount of time, we need to have a funding source. Well, a year or two ago, we had limited funding sources. We didn't know what would be available to us through El Capitan. We didn't know. I think we had about $3 million in Measure M money. So when you have those limited funds, there isn't a lot that you can plan for. You try to address needs. So as you look at the completed projects, we wanted to be very measured. But we've always looked at projects when we bring you recommendations for the next thing. We've always looked at them through 3 lenses. We want to make sure that the high school experience is equitable for all students. So we want to make sure that they have equitable facilities throughout the district. The other thing is we are developing a standardization, a definition of what our facilities should be. What should the standard at MUHSD be? And then try to achieve that. And then the last lens that we look through is issues of safety, things that need to be addressed, and safety and functionality. If whatever facility is not functioning the way it's supposed to, then it's time to replace it. So those are the 3 lenses. So again, given the limited amount of funding that we had, Our completed project, and this is how, where do I point?
At my computer, but it's not working.
Oh, okay. It buzzed.
Sorry.
It was like a shot collar.
That was your timer, so that's why.
Yeah. All right. So basically, the completed projects, I think we've already shown you these. We finally completed the rest of the security fence installation. Atwater High School was the last to need to complete the security fence installation. So now we've completed that project throughout the district. The other thing that has been completed is the Merced High School concession ticket booth and entryway. That is on tonight's consent agenda for acceptance of completion. All right, so now we get into February and suddenly Dr. Weimer says, hey, there's funding available.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, the current project that we have in the pipeline are, for example, the East Campus parking lot extension, you've already approved that. You approved it in October or November, and with the onset of bad weather, we've had to wait until the weather warms up so that our project comes out as specified. So we have to wait for the temperature to rise a little bit. The solar installation was a different project, not requiring much of our funding, and the El Capitan roof repair was something that you just approved, but again, outside of the Measure M funding. So the next project, the one that we'll be bringing you tonight for your consideration, is the Merced High School Phase 2 Stadium project. And the following month, we will bring you the Atwater High School bleacher replacement for the visitor side. Those are the things that have been planned for some 6 to 8 months ago, and they're ready to go. And before, we thought we only had $3 million, and we were going to have to decide what went first. Well, now we have the funding to be able to do that. So those are the projects that are coming to you in the next couple of months or are underway and already approved.
Ralph, in regards to timing, portables at Atwater High, it says September. Do we need them? Will we have them sooner?
We will.
Okay.
These are very preliminary suggestions.
Well, are those completion dates or those are start dates?
Yes, estimated completion, and I think there that we will rush that project a little bit more. So we will get started hopefully by the end of May, if not April. Of course, I will push for April. But again, these things take time. There's a process that they need to go through, and depending on what DSA does or doesn't ask for, the time is either lengthened or shortened. So we would expect that those you will see on another piece of paper that our other, probably a newer completion date is August.
Okay, and what about the roof at El Capitan? Just hoping it's done before kids are on campus.
They actually do not have to access anything. They're not going to disturb students while they're working on that. It will not be an experience similar to Merced High School, where they're banging on the, yeah, that will not happen. There's enough of a separation that will not happen.
And Ralph, will this cause any disruption with the opening of the season as sports throughout? I mean, some of these timelines, March, now, May 5th coming up soon. If they open up a sports season, will they disrupt any of that process going on? Or are we just going to go through the bid process first and then summertime start these things, or?
Yeah. The only one that might have an impact is the Atwater High School bleachers.
Okay.
We are very much, if we bring it to you in April, we did a bid watch this past Thursday, right? No, tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. So we'll do the bid walk tomorrow. What's that?
This Thursday, tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. Yes, tomorrow will be the bid walk. They'll get the bids ready. Hopefully by the April board meeting, we will bring to you a recommendation for bid acceptance. And then it may take another month or so to start. So that will miss the current calendar football season. And they do not use the visitor side for graduation, so it won't impact that. And hopefully, I'm not going to say it publicly that we'll be ready by next football season, but that's the goal.
Are they not usable right now anyway?
They are, but they are.
Barely.
Yeah. I mean, the time for replacement of individual planks is over. We need, again, it's when you have limited amount of funds, and not that we're gonna waste any funds, because we have, I'm not gonna use the word ample either, because we've got too many projects to use that terminology. So the other thing that we are nearing the end, and I know that there were several of you that had specific questions about the district-wide solar installation. That has reached almost its conclusion. I think Melissa will answer any questions that you might have specifically to that project.
Yes, so we are now producing power through our solar system. We received permission to operate as of, actually, I believe it was this last week or the week before, through MID and PG&E. So it's up and moving at this point. And officially, excluding a few miscellaneous items, nearly complete.
So we will, remember, our agreement is to pay them a set price for the next 27 years. So, okay. All right.
Mr. Keller, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Before we move on, the portables at Atwater, is that all of the 600 portables? Or?
No, that's an additional 4 portables.
Oh, adding 4 portables, not replacing.
4 portables, yes.
Got it.
In the social studies class.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, that particular picture there, okay.
Yeah, that's where.
And I appreciate Ralph's optimism in completing the project by August. So, you know, that's what we're pushing for.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so the next couple of slides are just kind of showing the areas on the campus that are imminent. Again, tonight I'm bringing you a recommendation for phase 2 of the Merced High School Stadium, and then the bleachers. We have the job walk tomorrow. The Atwater High 4 portable classrooms will be in that area of the high school, and I don't have anything to show you yet on the roof remediation. And of course, Melissa just talked about the solar. All right, so now we get into either you wanting to take specific action and us calendaring this for April, or you give us essentially direction and we continue to move on. So now that we have accessed nearly $20 million of Measure M bond money, there's a lot of things that are available to us that we can possibly think of. And again, we're looking at these projects from a lens of equity, from standardization and safety and functionality. So some of the things that we are considering and that we wish that you would give us direction or, again, take action on are constructing a new pool complex at Merced High School, at Atwater High School, renovating and changing out the bleachers at Yosemite High School, security cameras, the Livingston High School concession restroom building, and the LCAP parking lot. All of those have varying values, but all of those are it's possible to complete all those with existing funding. But there's more. There's always more. Other projects that we may be able to use as part of the Measure M bond money are the painting of Merced High School and Buhack Colony, and then of course closer to the bottom, putting Atwater High School, the other high schools on a rotation to make sure that they look sharp, that we're not waiting until the paint is completely peeled off before we address those things. The other things, again, in terms of equity, is to complete stadiums at Buhack Colony and El Capitan High School. And those seem like significant investments, and they are, but some of those projects can be phased in. We can do another concession building. Once we get the drawing for the entire project, we might be able to do some of those things. And I'm not going to go through everything, but you can see that there's an abundance of other projects that we have there. And then when we talk about the needs of our district, other needs that we have identified, we're talking, we can't do those projects without at some point in the future passing a new school bond. And the other identified needs continue on the next page as well.
So with these other identified needs, they're just looking at this screen, requiring a new bond. So realistically, what would be a timeline for these projects? I mean, we're looking years and years down the road.
I think depending, I'm going to let you, Bond Master, talk about that.
They usually, part of the sales of the bond, you would do it in series. You wouldn't do it all at once because they want you to spend the money that you do go out and get within a 3-year period of time. So to do that for $120 million of bonds would probably be 2 to 3 series. So you're talking anywhere between 3 to 9 years for completion of everything on those lists.
So are you, what do you need from us then as a board? I mean, do you want us to prioritize these, come back with a list and vote on what we're going to do in the phases, or what will it look like?
Yeah, I think what we want is certainly for you guys to look at the Measure M bond projects that are in planning. And
Can you go back to those slides, please?
Yeah. The one that starts with Measure M bond projects in planning, Merced High School pool. So if you look at that and you look at the next page, what we would like is for you to look at some of those projects. And I mean, we don't have them in any priority, but we think we can get those projects done in the next year and a half, maybe 2 years. Okay? And because what we want to make sure that we're doing things well, that we're doing things that we can handle this much construction. The last thing you want to do is create a whole building department that is only going to be here for about 2-3 years, and then we got to get rid of people. But we have funds to address these needs. They are needed to provide equitable facilities at each of our sites. Some of them need to be replaced because there are safety concerns or functionality concerns. So that's where we are. You will get a couple of opportunities. Remember, we've also contracted to do a long-range facilities master plan, and they are going to take some of these issues and they're going to bring them to you for your perusal, and then you're going to decide what we ought to try to construct first.
So Ralph, when you say you want direction from us either today or are you, not today, you're talking maybe after the facilities master plan comes to us and see what projects are a part of this or that plan? Or do you want direction tonight?
No, we would like, if we were bringing you an action item tonight, Mr. Lopez, it would be everything on slide 9 and everything on slide 10.
Okay, so that would be the one with the pools and then this one we're looking at now.
That's right. And we would like to do that in April. We would like the board to act on the new projects and officially give us approval and move forward.
And when we talk about the pools, are we talking about just replacing them with what's there, where they're currently at now, or brand new locations so we would have
God,
two pools?
no.
Or we have 2 pools at those sites?
No.
That depends.
Okay.
So at Atwater, we would be putting it back where it is.
Okay.
Within reason. I mean, there might be a little.
But it's a different pool, a different.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just talking about the location.
Yeah, we
the
will,
same location.
at both sites, we will come in and demolish and remove everything down to the dirt.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, at Atwater, it will be built right back on that site, in that area. At Merced, it will not be.
Okay.
In Merced, it will be more next to the gym in the grass area there.
So when Merced keep the gym, the other pool off of it?
No.
It's gonna be part of it, it's just encroaching.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. Gotcha, okay.
What, again, when we're looking at standardization of facilities, we want similar pools. Of course, we've learned things. We've had input from Golden Valley, from UHAC, who were the last to get new pool complexes. We've learned things from them that coaches certainly have. And so we've gone out and done some advanced work in what they would like, and to make, upgrades within reason. There are some upgrades that, boy, it would be very difficult to make it happen.
So, go ahead, Julio.
Thank you. So talking about learning, I know I've asked this before. I don't know if Melissa was here yet, but we learned from the new gyms in Atwater and Merced to build them with locker rooms, and Livingston does not have locker rooms. I don't see that on here. That's something that we forgot.
Yeah, no, not at all. You have to remember, I was principal of Livingston High School for 8 years, so I haven't forgotten. This is not a comprehensive list. We would get you something a little bit more specific, and perhaps our prices instead of TBD would be a range, and you would see the funding source so that you would be able to prioritize these projects. So no, this is not a comprehensive list by any means.
But he's talking specifically about building the locker rooms at Livingston.
Livingston High School gym. Yeah, the new gym that.
Right.
Yeah.
The hot lockers.
Yes, we could put that on there.
Oh, it's on the list here, right?
Well,
other identified needs.
No, that's a concession stand and restroom facility.
No, it's other identified needs, though. It's the renovation of locker rooms, or are we?
Yeah, Mr. Valadez, in order to do the locker rooms correctly, it needs to be a part of a bigger project there, meaning a new cafeteria next to the new gym. And the locker rooms would be a part of that, and that dollar amount isn't going to happen in this allocation unless the board says so, because we would knock off, a whole lot of other smaller projects on the list. So, and that's what tonight's about, is to get that feedback on what you want us to do and what you don't want us to do.
Go ahead.
With the list on those 2 pages currently, do we have it broken down by site as to which site? Let's say Atwater's going to get 10 projects done, UHAC's going to get 9, or you know, Merced's gonna get one project, and then the cost estimate as to how much we're going to, not allocate because projects are gonna differ, but at least have equality going across the campuses, that if Atwater School's gonna cost, you know, 5.5, and their total projects are gonna be $10 million, you know, well, down the road would be, say, you know, for BHAC, down the road, it's gonna be $10 million because they got $10 million, or how's that gonna look?
Yeah, we can do that by site. What we've looked at is, if we look at things, if we look through these lenses, where do we have safety issues and functionality? We have pool systems that don't function, and there's so many lost days of access to those facilities because they just don't work anymore. I think those, we would recommend to you that you seriously consider those projects going first.
I'm not opposed to those projects. I'm just thinking down the road.
No,
obviously, there's a big need, and those are antiquated facilities. You know, so I'm all for the project. I'm just thinking in terms of down the road. You know, BC has wanted a second stadium or a second gym and their football field done.
Yeah.
So in terms of down the road, like how soon, you know, solicit another bond, or, you know, if the bond passes, are we going to allocate such amount of dollars to get their projects completed versus, well, it didn't make the second round of the list yet, so you'll have to wait another 5 years before we go down there.
Right. Our hope is to try to take the current funds that we have available to us through Measure M, potentially developer fees, whatever we can use there, all funds, even unidentified funds, and try to make as many of these projects fit into the funding sources.
Yeah. And are there needs identified for the East Campus building on here too?
Yes.
I mean, not.
As a matter of fact, that's one of the Yosemite High School interior gym and bleachers.
Oh, can you go back to the first? I'm sorry. Oh, right here. Just interior gym and bleachers.
Yeah, and then the one that was just about, that's already been done.
The parking lot.
That we approved,
yes,
the parking lot.
yes.
That's not very sexy for that campus, right? In a parking lot, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I would argue that this allocation, it will be very, very difficult to make things fair.
Right.
Like, okay, you get, you know, we're looking at $20 million. Okay, well, what can each site do for $3 million?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I understand.
You know.
Right.
I think what Mr. Calderon was mentioning, you know, looking at those three lenses, I know the LHS track and turf is on here, but I think it's after an additional bond, and might that be something that would benefit that particular campus?
It is. You know, I'd like to say that Livingston High School has had a current bleacher replacement, and also, you know, the possibility of having this concessions and restroom building will help them substantially. So, you know, if we can have that done, then that's very beneficial to them. And of course, we're always looking at the turf and the tracks, you know, for possible renovation too.
Right, because they just got the bleachers. And the pool.
About 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree that the bathrooms definitely, they need something out there. And then I know we've got, because it's very athletic, heavy or intensive. So it's nice to see that there's a black box theater. Didn't see anything, you know, maybe for band and helping make those facilities more functional.
There's $10 million for band.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Band room extensions about.
And listen, the other thing I think is we all started as site administrators. We know the daily grind of not having the facilities that you need. We're in the middle of visiting with band directors now to talk to them about, you know, if we can't do this right now, how can we make your band program more functional and you know, maybe we can put a portable up as a temporary measure. That's one of the things that we're going to talk to John Smith and Garrett Geary about is how do we make sure that our kids get the best access to quality facilities while we're waiting to build the utopian facilities. So we want to make sure that we don't just say, that's too bad, you got to wait another 10 years.
And that was
Well,
one of the things.
Go ahead, Julio.
Sorry, I don't know who was talking, I'm sorry. But anyway, I was gonna say that as well. I feel that we have focused on sports more than anything else. And maybe I'm gonna suggest, maybe we prioritize doing something with band rooms when it's time, or as soon as possible, let's say.
And, you know, not that we don't disagree with you at all, Julio. I think something to reiterate, something that Ralph said, is that, you know, we have a lot of safety concerns that had to be addressed. You know, hence you see Merced High School and Atwater High School pools on there. They're old and antiquated systems that need to be taken care of. Yosemite High School interior gym and bleachers, that's definitely a safety concern that we need to address. So I think, you know, that's what we're trying to do right now, and take care of those issues at this time, and then come back around to band and accommodate them as much as possible.
That's what I'm saying is, I mean, do what needs to be done, like you said, whatever has safety issues, but then maybe focus on band rooms at all facilities, or some type of like Tiffany said, it could be I don't know, a theater or whatever it is for the band to practice and perform in.
Yeah, those are currently being assessed, like Ralph said. Right now, we've been meeting at each site and trying to at least give them some additional space and room to grow in.
Well, so I mean, we're looking at as many options as we can to make the best use of the dollars for all the stakeholders involved. So that's I think a priority. So
because I don't think there's any way. I mean, Alan said it. You can't make it perfectly equal, and our facilities are all different ages, and that's why you look at, you know, some of our sites have beautiful pools, and then you've got Merced and Atwater, right? And some of our sites have incredible theaters, and then you've got Merced and Atwater. I mean, they're the two oldest schools, and so, you know, we're going to have to spend a little more probably there to get them to match everything else.
And I'll push back on Aaron and say some sites have 2 gyms and some sites don't. And some sites have football facilities and some sites don't.
Absolutely. So we need to get them all up to par, right? And so it's a matter of prioritizing and.
Well, it seems like a comprehensive list that we're looking at all the a variety of needs in different areas.
So Ralph, if you want direction on this, I mean, I'm all for it, and I mean, it's not an action item. You guys just want direction.
We're just what we're going to do is we're going to create a list that's a little bit more specific, and we're going to make recommendations to you about what we think is the best use of the funding that's available right now.
Okay.
And those are the things that we're going to attempt to proceed over the next 2 to 3 years. And again, you know, when we talk about doing a Merced or Atwater pool, if you were to give us the go-ahead today, we probably couldn't start on that until next August at the earliest, because the plans, you know, we've already done a walkthrough, we've already sought input, but there is a process. It's a 4 to 6 month process for that thing to get through DSA. It takes 2 to 3 months for the architect, and then it takes about a year to a year and a half to get built out.
That's terribly depressing.
Well, could we amend the action agenda and add this to it so it can have direction to start that process now versus waiting a month and 6 months after that?
It's not like we're sitting, we're still gaining information.
Right.
You know, it's not like we're, we still, these are still in their conceptual stages. So we're still getting work done and trying to find out information. Because again, what we want is the ability to put as many jigsaw pieces together to fit in the funding sources.
So with page 1 and page 2, is that going to encumber, I mean, I think it's over the 20 million, is that correct? On the project list?
Well, you have to remember that some of it started here with phase 2.
You mean 9 and 10, Mr. Lopez?
Well, I'm not sure, I mean, there's no numbers on our page.
The Measure M bond project in planning.
Correct, that page, yeah, that's about, I don't know, 15?
That one in the next one. And then the next one.
All of those right there will be pretty darn close.
Okay.
It might be a little less, a little more.
Those 2 pages will take more than the bond money. They'll take some development.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Which we have in the bank, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, I mean, obviously with some of those smaller projects that we can get going with now and not wait until we get the approval for the pools. I mean, I say we start the process now versus waiting, so.
Yeah, and again, we already have, that's why we're able to begin to
Bring
point
that.
you in the right direction.
So we're in a good place right now to take action on April.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to be sitting still between now and April.
Right, yeah.
We're not going to wait.
Yeah. Okay.
A couple more things. I appreciate that you discussed getting perhaps portables for bands, because that was a tremendous need. They talked about how incredibly crowded they were, both at Merced High and Golden Valley, and perhaps other sites, but in particular with COVID, I don't think we can come back with band rooms the way they are today. So will that be in the first phase to get that happening temporarily?
Every place that we've gone so far, storage has been their number one identified goal. They don't have enough storage. We're able to help them out at the district level in purchasing uniforms, which used to be just like such a horrible thing for a band director to go through. And so Scott's figured out a way to make sure that they're in a rotation for that. But to be able to have enough space to store that, to store, I think, sheet music is another big thing. So it can't just go out in a C train. It has to be a climate controlled.
Well, they're specifically, if I understood it, looking for where kids come together and meet, leave their instruments, they don't have enough room.
Yes.
So in that case, when you mentioned a portable, I thought, oh, that might be it.
Yeah, because right now they're using a lot of the practice, the little side rooms as storage facilities. So if we move that out, and again, this is coming from them, they're saying, boy, that would just, we could take these instruments out, I could almost fit all my kids in one classroom.
So really just getting creative to meet the needs and maximize the use of the dollars.
Absolutely.
All right, just to be clear, the band instructors will tell you, yes, we need more room, we need a bigger room. But when you qualify it with, we're not going to be able to build you a bigger room right now, how else can we help you? Then it goes to storage.
Yeah.
Or can you know, if we blew out this wall, this small little closet area, you know, it would help a lot. So.
Okay. I don't see cafeterias on here, and I know that was one that.
I think when you, again, it's not a comprehensive list. Other projects identified in the 5-year facilities master plan. So there's quite a bucket list.
Okay. What about the loss of grass? So you talked about the Merced High pool taking up some of the grass space next to the gym. The picture of Atwater High where the portables go, it looks like they're going to take up grass. And it just, are we leaving some green spaces on our campus? Do we have a plan around what that ratio should be?
Prior to finishing or putting our stamp of approval and sending these things off, I know that that's something that we can work with architects to make sure. So it's not going to be a concrete jungle. There's still, you know.
Yeah. Well, I asked that question because I saw the picture of Atwater High School, and I know what those 4 portables are going to look like there, as do you. And it was not my first best option, but then when you think about it, okay, well, where are you gonna put 4 portables at Atwater High School? Well, you have to go beyond the dirt road all the way out by the softball field, which is way in the back.
Can you put the pool out there?
Yeah, do it there.
Yeah.
There's no utilities out there. And again, we're not doing this forever, but we want to make sure that when we put 4 portables for the growth, that we also have existing utilities that would make it less costly for a temporary solution.
Yeah. Well, I know that there's all of this money available related to COVID as well, and I just wondered if any of it, and I know I'm sorry, I ask every time, but like can be related. For instance, we need bigger band rooms because we can't have kids on top of each other. Can we make that?
We will do everything we can to be creative like that.
I would love to see us have more grass spaces and picnic tables and areas where kids can sit outside.
Picnic tables, yes.
Enlarged cafeterias with better ventilation systems.
Roll up doors, yes.
Yeah, okay, yes, absolutely, roll up doors, and anyway, okay.
So Dr. Weimer, off topic, so that 20 million that you talked about earlier, Alan, for COVID, is that not including the new part of the 1.9 trillion that we're supposed to get like 2,500 per student?
Yeah, we're doing second interim today.
Yes, I know, okay.
And so I'll go.
So that a separate amount then?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll bring us back a list in April then?
Yes.
Okay.
I will bring you back a recommendation of things that we think give us the best value for the funding that we have.
Okay.
And maybe we as board members can send Melissa or whoever we need to send it to a list of what other things that we can think of, and then they can just look into that and see if that's feasible.
Sure.
But again, I just wanted to emphasize, and I like the idea that Aaron said, if possible, using COVID money for expanding or building band rooms. I don't know if that's even possible, but hopefully look into that. But on the football stadiums, are they multi-use? Like, are they going to be able to be using them for soccer as well, like for the new Merced stadium?
Not Merced.
Merced already has a track area, I think, that they use for soccer, possibly. Is that correct?
They go to McNamara Park right now, don't they? I mean, the soccer field there is so bad.
The BUHAC and the El Capitan ones would include soccer as part of the stadium complexes.
Right.
There'll be a separate project at Merced High that would be an all-weather track and area for soccer in the same area that it's at right now, because it's currently not with the stadium.
Okay, so we are looking into soccer field as well at the sites. I know a while back ago, Alan and I had talked, he had mentioned some ideas for Atwater High School soccer fields too. So just maybe keep soccer fields in mind as well.
Yeah. Again, the 3 lenses are equity for all students, standardization of facilities, and safety and functionality.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Enough direction, I guess?
Yes.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to cost issuance disclosure, general obligation bonds. Dr. Weimer?
Yeah, I think I have to turn my camera on before I can show the screen. Make sure that came up. Okay. So real quickly, this won't take very long. We do have a requirement that after we issue a bond, that we do have to show the public and the board the cost of issuance. So this document here does show on a $19.996 million bond what the cost of issuance was. The estimated cost is what was in the resolution that you approved when we went out for the bond, and the actual costs are listed there, so it actually came in $5,000 less as far as cost to issue the bond than what we were estimating when we passed the resolution. We did ask for some information because bond rates pretty much went up the day after we sold our bonds. And so interest rates have been going up for the last pretty much 3 weeks. So we did ask them if we went out for the bonds today or tomorrow, what would we have gotten? And it would be between 1.6 and $2.5 million less because of the increased interest rates. So we did get the timing just right, and got the maximum that we could from the issuance.
Exceptional job getting that.
And I'm going to stall just a little bit until Tiffany can come back. The different components of this, again, the underwriter did a very good job for us. One of the things that they get paid for is they're the ones who sell the bonds. And you know you're getting a good price for the bond when you sell about like 90 to 95%, you don't sell them all. Because if you sell them all right away, that means you were too cheap, you know, and you didn't get as much money as you could have. And so you hope to have a little bit left over at the end. And so on that day, we sold about 96% of the bonds, 94% were left over. And the underwriter comes in and then purchases those themselves and then sells it at their own expense later. And so that's part of the fee that they get there, is that they do that service for us. And so we did get that 95, 96% rate. So that means we were priced just about right, between pricing it just right and the interest rates where they were at the time. We got a really good bang for our buck. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
No questions? Thank you, Dr. Weimer. Next, we have DTA additional proposal negotiations. Mrs. Ballinger.
Thank you, President Pickle. The Education Employment Relations Act requires the district and its bargaining units to sunshine their initial proposals concerning negotiations. The sunshine process is described in Government Code Section 3547. The district is required to present its initial proposal at a public meeting to enable the public to become informed and have the opportunity to express public comment. Following such public comment, the governing board must adopt the district's initial proposal at the subsequent meeting. The current contract between the district and DTA will expire on June 30th, 2021. Please consider this sunshine of the identified interests of NUHSD and NUHS-DTA. Article 11, work year and hours of work proposed by the district. Article 13, class size and counseling load proposed by DTA. Article 15, unit member evaluations proposed by the district. Article 20, progressive discipline proposed by DTA. And then we have a mutual interest in proposing Article 22, fringe benefits, and Article 23, remuneration. In addition, NUHSD holds an interest in examining the MOU regarding the DATE T4S observation instrument on page 118 and 119 of the contract, and also eliminating any expired MOUs from the contract. The DTA also seeks the STIRS Golden Handshake retirement incentive to be added to the CBA. The parties mutually agree to examine and include in the body of the collective bargaining agreement the existing MOUs where applicable.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ballinger. So I think you're up next with CSCA initial proposal for 2021-22 negotiations.
I am, and the background's pretty much the same, but the Education Employment Relations Act requires the district and its bargaining units to sunshine their initial proposals prior to commencing negotiations. The sunshine process is described in Government Code Section 3547. The district is required to present its initial proposal in a public meeting to enable the public to become informed and have the opportunity to express public comment. Following such public comment, the governing board must adopt the district's initial proposal at the subsequent public meeting. The current contract between the district and the CSEA will expire on June 30th, 2021. Please consider the sunshine of the identified interests of NUHSD and CSEA. Article 12, conditions of employment proposed by CSEA. And I just wanted to point out that this was left off the initial agenda that was published last week, but it was added before the meeting. Article 13, employment, promotion, classification, probation, assignment, and transfer proposed by CSEA. Article 14, evaluation, disciplinary action, and hearing proposed by the district. Article 15, leaves proposed by CSEA. We have a mutual interest in Article 16, health benefits, and Article 17, remuneration. And then there's Article 21, the complete complaint procedures proposed by CSEA.
Mrs. Ballinger,
Yes.
can you go back real quick to the MUH, the DTA one, and go down the articles as to who's proposing what?
Yes, I can. Article
you.
11, do you want to know what they are? or just-
11. Yeah, so just tell me who like Article 11 is that DTA? I'm sorry, yeah, DTAs or us?
Article 11 is the district.
District, okay,
Article 13 was DTA.
okay,
Article 15 was the district. Article 20 was DTA. And then we have mutual interest in 22 and 23.
okay. And then on the remuneration process, what does that look like for DTA? Is that including our CTE teachers, or is that not even part of this discussion yet?
I'm currently working with DTA for a CTE teacher salary schedule.
Okay, now, is that something that has to be bargained also, or is that a separate conversation?
It'll end up getting rolled into this would be the goal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ballinger, and thank you for the clarification on that as well.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Superintendent Goals Update. Mr. Peterson.
All right, I think we have,
Tony.
yes. Tony is going to talk about our Wi-Fi cloud. Mr. Thomas, you can have at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, President Pickle, trustees, and cabinet. Can everybody hear me? Just making sure. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So the community Wi-Fi, what has been done so far? So far, we've done site surveys for the high school districts. We created a request for qualifications, and we've established an RFQ timeline. So we've also reached out to our stakeholders, such as the City of Merced, the County of Merced, the City of Livingston, MHSD feeder schools, and MCOE. So before I go a little bit farther, I kind of want to explain what we're doing right now is we're taking the process of reaching out to bid for someone to develop an architectural design and for a county-wide solution. So basically, you know, we can have all these conversations with all the different stakeholder groups, but at the end of the day, everybody's coming back to the question, well, how much is this going to cost? What does this look like? How much do we need? So what we're suggesting is that we actually do an architectural design. We did one for the high school district, but as the scope of this project grew, we need to do one for the whole county. So here's a kind of just a quick map showing the locations of our high schools. And here's what would happen if we put just towers on our high schools, and what the location, or what the spectrum analysis looks like for frequency. So as an example, just as we look at this right here, the blue that you see, that is where you get the very, very best signal. So you can see the scope of this is really, really big. So if we're to do the whole county and cover every student and include all these other entities, we really need to have a firm come out and help us design this, right? Come out, map it, do the spectrum analysis, and come back to us and basically say, okay, you're gonna need this much towers, here's where you need the towers, here's equipment you need, here's the cost for it, and here's the staffing you're gonna need to manage it, and what it's gonna cost every year to maintain it. Then the plan is we can come back to the stakeholders at that point, right? We can actually have real conversations of, is this feasible? You know, do you wanna participate in this? So then we have actual data to have real conversations. Right now, having hypothetical conversations is really difficult. So I want to be able to make sure that we're able to have data-driven decisions when we have conversations. So,
Tony, is red good or bad, or
it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means the signal's not as strong. So when you look at that, those I call them flowers because that's the way that it radiates out, right? So as you look at those areas, you can still get signal and you could probably still do Zoom in those areas, but the blue is where the highest concentration or the best connection you're going to get when it comes to bandwidth. So you can see this is really like, you really need to have this done and done right in order for it to be effective, because it's easy to go up and put towers up, but we want to make sure that if we're investing millions of dollars in this, that we get it right the first time.
Tony, how is it?
Go ahead, sorry.
Tony, how is it that the blue skips over red and then blue appears again?
So there's a lot of different factors. So this is why this is so tricky. Like normally if this had been like a high school network or something like that, we are more than capable of designing that. MCOE is more than capable of designing that. But when they do these analysis, you got to remember there's trees in the way, there's objects such as towers, different stuff. And then the height of the radios make a difference of how far it goes out. The higher up that they are, the less, if you're close to that radio, the less signal you're going to get because you're too, so think of it like this. The signal comes out and it makes almost like a McDonald's kind of arches kind of frequency. So if you're too close, you won't get very good signal. And if you're far away, it starts to degrade as it goes. Hopefully does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we worked with MCOE and then our internal purchasing staff so that we could develop an RFQ. So basically we're reaching out to find a qualified architect such as like Nokia, Motorola, Bisos, one of them that develop actual real LTE networks for like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, so that they can come out and design a real CBRS LTE network for our high school district. And this is the timelines that we have. So next week we'll be going out for our second legal ad, or this week, excuse me, I apologize. And then we'll have our mandatory virtual pre-bid conference to kind of tell the vendors what we're looking for specifically. And then they'll have to do the request for information, then a response. The RFQ will be due. And then we'll have a short list of vendors at that point, and it'll be released. And then we'll have some interview questions released for the short list vendors. And then we'll be doing interviews with that short list. And then we'll hope to award it and then come back to the board on 5/12 to present it back to the board of who we're suggesting we should go with. Any questions? I'm sure there's probably a lot.
Hey, Tony.
Well,
Yes. Tony, you said the blue area was the optimum area?
Yes.
What about the yellowish green area? Is that why you explained it going over like an umbrella type of thing?
Yeah, so some of those areas, they're not going to be, once again, they're not going to be good, or the frequency is super, super strong right there. So you can see it has like a little chart there that kind of shows off to the left-hand side, the frequency level, the dBm. So how strong of a signal you get.
So red is
it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it starts to degrade a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Based on the legend there, is green the best? Green, and then going to red?
Green is the best, but blue is like optimal.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, okay.
And we could do a study session on this too. If you guys want later on, we can sit down as we get closer to actually, hiring a vendor or an architect to design this for us.
Hey, Tony.
Yes, sir.
So obviously the majority of the El Capitan students come from the South Side Merced area. So, I mean, their connectivity, even if they were to bounce off, Golden Valleys or whoever else is, I mean, they're going to have virtually nothing.
Yeah, so this was just to give an example of what we're going to ask for.
Gotcha,
So this
okay.
is, I wanted you to be able to see a visible representation of what we'll be asking for, but we're going to ask them to provide a comprehensive map just like this for the whole county and where we would need towers. It doesn't mean that it's going to be feasible, maybe possibly in some areas, but at least we'll know what exactly we need. Like, so as we talk about Snelling, we talk about Las Banas, we talk about Las Palas, we talk about Delhi, right? We talk about all those outlying areas. Well, where do we need towers? What do we need so that we can cover all of our students, right? So that's what we need. We need a map showing that. And then from that data, we'll be able to do possibly stages to work with the other stakeholders and decide, you know, what do we have money for to do now? And then how do we get to a spot maybe where we start with, you know, let's get 40% of the students connected. You know, the next year we work on 60, the year after 80, or we might even have enough money, depending on what it comes back with, to start with 80% of the students. So we just don't know until we actually get actual data like this to come back to see what we need.
So just so I'm clear, we're trying to provide Wi-Fi to all of our students plus all of our feeder schools, not necessarily to all of Merced, Atwater, and Livingston. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know you.
Yeah.
Go on.
So for us, our goal is to provide access to our students, right? But what we're doing, the map, or what the whole joint venture of this is to get data so that if the feeder schools want to join in, or if the cities want to join in, what does this look like, right? We have to have a comprehensive map of our whole county so that we can even talk about splitting costs or looking at how do we get their, like for the city, you know, they want to do the water tower or something. So how do we get that connected? Well, that obviously comes at a cost. So they'll have to put that part of the cost. Or how do we share putting up maybe a tower and you put up your radios, but we put up our radios there also. So
Tony, hey Tony, so whoever is doing this work for us right now with the satellites and or whatever the dishes, where they're going to be at, so I mean, there's obviously a cost associated with it. So is MUHSD going to encumber that cost, or are we going to ask the other possible feeder schools in outlying areas, say, hey, we're doing this as part of a county consortium, and we're all going to split it some way, somehow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yes, absolutely. But we have to get that number, and we have to get the data back, right? Like if this is even feasible, right? If
well, I'm just talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about this in general. I mean, there's going to be some work done just to get us to this point.
But this is our undertaking now. I mean, right now, we're looking at MUHSD students as a board. And then those other conversations will come later, right?
Yeah,
Based
I
on
mean,
information, yeah.
we are, if you're asking who's paying for this current application, we are.
Okay.
And if it is, you know, too expensive or out of bounds, I have no problem, and the other superintendents are fully aware, I have no problem asking them, and we've had that discussion, so that's.
Yeah, because I know there's been dialogue about expanding this for, I mean, you mentioned Merced County, you know, so that's
Well,
tremendous.
I think, yeah, and I think he's going to, it's,
Yeah.
and when you say Merced County, you mean the 99 corridor, right? You don't mean the west side?
Yes, because we have students geographically dispersed everywhere.
Yeah, right.
So we want to make sure to, you know, that to cover everywhere. And then if
And
we're
it
going to
does-
go ahead.
It does go up to Delhi, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. This might complicate things, but Richard and I are on the board for the East Merced Community Fund, and all of these same entities can join that fund. Not that the money that's there would necessarily be shared for this or what have you, but it is a place where everyone could come together under one umbrella
the entity.
for a special project such as this. It's specific for the county, the cities, and it is specific to the geography that incorporates Merced Union High School District. and then everyone else falls in line. So it would never go to the west side, right? So I don't know, that's a thought.
That's great to know.
We just learned that,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
There's also the Merced Intersegmental Team that John Spivak is leading with Dr. Duran, and that's part of that kind of larger group. So, I attend, Tony attends, those meetings, and it's all around, this work. So basically, you have your cities of, your municipalities here in Merced, so everyone's connected, like what you're referring to.
And as Aaron's mentioned, with us being on that committee, there's approximately $7 million, I believe, in that pot right now. Merced Union High School would be entitled to, I think, 37% of those monies. And Merced City is obviously they've I guess suggested to all of us to gather our own firms to represent us in this process, because I'm thinking I'm assuming that they may want to start to access those funds, and I'm not sure where Merced Union High School stands, but maybe a dialogue that we can have here in the near future as to what we want to do, if we want to expedite that process. Also, see if they're even open to a dialogue like this, that, hey, we have $7 million in the pot, go solicit a bond and get this project going, because it's going to impact all of Merced, pretty much. So it's just something that we want to start that dialogue with all of us as a board, so. And I believe Ralph and Dr. Weimer were part of that conversation last week also, and then Melissa is the chair, so.
Yeah, no, and we're aware, and my suggestion on that would be to expedite the splitting of that as soon as you can.
Okay.
So is there any other questions, or?
My only other question is, if we get this coordinated with all of the different parties as intended, we wouldn't necessarily have towers at every one of our sites, or would we? I mean, if it made more sense to have them at other schools that were provide better bandwidth for a specific area, we might share that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I showed you was that was a study we did before we had the greater conversation about the whole county. So I was using that just as an example, but there will probably be towers all over, probably on lots of different elementary schools, lots of different city community buildings. So there will probably be towers all over. And what I figure what will happen is, when we get to that point where we bring everybody in, we'll do an MOU, like a joint use agreement with them. And then we'll probably share towers and then put our radios on the different towers, for the different agencies, is the way that I kind of see the long-term process. But once we get the data back of what does it actually take to do this.
And then, forgive my naivety, and maybe you can tell me that this is going too deep too, that this is for later, but how does it work? Is it then every household is able to access it, or just students, or I don't.
That would depend on, like I said, the joint agreements between, who's going to pitch in and who's going to do it. But for us, what we would do it is to just be like what we did previously. So the reason we bought those specific Verizon hotspots is we actually own the MiFis, so we can reuse those for students. So we can reprogram them to use the CBRS network that we're planning on building. So think of it as like, we'll be our own Sprint or AT&T kind of. So they have a couple different types of devices you can use. If you're in those red areas, as we were talking about, maybe you're in a spot that's a little not as strong a signal, you can use what they call a CPE device that goes where there's a little antenna that goes on the outside of your house that gets a better connection, or it might be a MiFi hotspot. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and Tony, I'm glad you brought up the hotspots. The state is batting around this issue, talking about many different ideas, and one of those ideas is to basically subsidize the service providers, so all of our students would get it for a cut rate. Scott, you can jump in here. I'm just interested to see what you think about that. Scott, why don't you set the table and
Yeah, there's multiple things going on in Washington right now. There is a group that's starting to grow that is opposed to this type of a concept. Obviously, they're supported by certain companies who would lose out in this type of a situation. And so there is a little bit of a movement. It's not growing very big right now, but there is a movement that would make these types of systems illegal, so that you couldn't build any more of these because it competes with private industry. Again, that's not too big a group right now, but it is out there. They did pass $7 billion in the relief packages for broadband, and so we're not exactly sure what direction they're going to go with using of those funds, whether it would be to do something like this and give out grants, or whether it's going to be straight going to a T-Mobile and a Verizon and saying, hey, we're going to undercut the cost of these things, and then you go and give them out to people at a cheaper rate. There is a program right now that is accessing some of those funds. That T-Mobile, I believe, is the underwriter for that, the company that's working with this group that has the federal funds. And right now, they're offering $15 for a year for somebody who's on free and reduced lunch with a 20 gig cap. So that's not a bad system at $15 a year. But the question is, what happens when those supports run out? So if they're getting money right now and they're getting subsidized to do that, and you go with them, what happens if in 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden, there's no federal support for that anymore, and now you're back to paying that $1 million a year to your services?
Yeah, so
there'll be multiple issues to discuss when the bid comes in.
yeah, Dr. Weimer's correct. There's a lot of different kind of things going on about this. The funny thing is, though, is those ISPs that we have been getting millions of dollars every year to build out in these areas, and they've really done nothing. So I think with what has happened has spurred this. That they're still going to be, even if they get money to subsidize, we're still going to be in those spots where they're not going to put towers up, because out in, like Mr. Lopez said earlier, they're not going to put towers up out in Snelling because it's just not going to be cost prohibitive for them. So we will be watching all those different things that are kind of happen. And then California passed that net neutrality law also. So that's another one that we'll be watching, that will be interesting how that's going to affect the vendors and how they try to cap data and what will happen with that too. So.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and next up, we have Mr. Torrin Johnson reporting on the Nurtured Heart from a district perspective. Unmute yourself, buddy.
Was I muted?
Yeah, you're good now.
Thank you. All right. President Pickle, board members, Superintendent Peterson, Cabinet, and Ms. Rohrbach, I'm here to talk a little bit about the Nurtured Heart approach. As Mr. Peterson said, how do I get this little picture out of my way? All right. To review, the Nurtured Heart approach is considered an evidence-informed practice that encourages relationship building, recognizing the greatness in a child in the moment, increasing school connectedness, and helping students build their inner wealth. If you're not familiar with it, the approach is set in 3 stands. The first is absolutely no, refusing to energize the negativity. Absolutely yes, relentlessly creating and energizing positivity and success. Being absolutely clear with your expectations, enforcing the rules. And the last one is a reset, where somebody gets basically a do-over. So the last 2, being absolutely clear, is, say, example, basketball. In basketball, if you're dribbling the ball and you step a toe out of bounds, you are out of bounds, the whistle blows, the ball goes the other way. We don't kick the player out of the game. He doesn't have to leave the stadium. We say that's against the rules. We'll give you a reset. And these 3 stands and the reset are something that we're trying to infuse into the classroom as expectations. Benefits to stakeholders. Staff and parents get an immediate relationship building methodology in Nurtured Heart. It provides structure, clarity, specificity, and purpose to recognitions and expectations. Students intrinsically motivates both academically and pro-socially. Students become invested and engaged in the learning process. Relationships provide opportunities for social emotional developments and build self-confidence. To date, we have 384 staff members trained at some level in Nurtured Heart and 122 parents. What is social emotional learning? SEL is the process through which children and adults acquire the knowledge, attitude, and skills of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. The Nurtured Heart approach is a vehicle for reinforcing the SEL competencies. Through recognitions, students gain awareness of their own efforts to become SEL competent. This helps students develop a sense of inner wealth and worth. Students learn to value the deeper connections and relationships they receive when they demonstrate their own positive attributes. NHA is not an SEL curriculum. It's a vehicle by which students have firsthand experiences of social emotional learning. Students are provided with the opportunity to practice, apply, and be recognized for using their SEL skills. For example, a teacher might give a student a recognition on using self-management, on being socially aware, or having self-awareness, or making better decisions. Students are provided with the opportunity to practice, apply, and be recognized for using SEL skills while engaging in some of our other initiatives, which are project-based learning, universal design for learning, and culturally responsive pedagogy. Kids come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job easier. If they do not come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job more important. And I believe that the Nurtured Heart approach is a vehicle that we will continue to train on and try to embed within the classroom, to embed with administrators who work with students, administrators who work with teachers. I mean, it's a relationship building mechanism, and we are trying to use it as such. Yes, sir, question.
So, Mr. Johnson, with the staff that's already been trained to some capacity with the Nurture Heart approach, and with some of our students, you know, that have come back in a cohort or where they may be, have these interventions or strategies been used with identified students that are back at the main campuses yet?
No. Well, there hasn't been much movement on kids returning back to campus. Are you talking about from Yosemite?
From Yosemite, and even when we did the first soft opening, you know, I think at that point we had some teachers that were going through the process. And then are we going to look to infuse some of these strategies when they return back next Monday?
Yes, yes. So people have been going through trainings all through distance learning. And so, you know, we're hoping beyond hope to try to get that in the classroom. And using Nurture and Heart in the classroom, I won't say it's hard, and I won't say it's easy. It's, you know, it's a process. It's like any other piece of pedagogy that you're trying to use in the classroom. We're going to work on operationalizing it a little bit better, because some people can put it in right after being trained, and some people need to work with it a little bit. So those that need to work with it, I'm thinking we could start with written recognitions, because, you know, it gets you good practice. And those that are ready to run, they can go for it. So yes, that is the idea. I think that our kids need to be met with people who are trying to build connections with them, as the data shows us over and over again. And some people make connections easier than others. So NHA is a sort of a recipe.
And obviously that would be the hope, that as we return back March 15th with students, that we focus a lot of our efforts on that reconnectedness with students, you know, because we've all gone through a lot, I mean, staff and students, and it's, you know, time for us to, you know, to start that process. And then with NHA, is that like more whole class based, or are we talking student centered as per student need?
I would think either, but I think it works teacher to student 101, really well. And I like it in that modality because there are a lot of kids that come up through our school systems who don't have a lot of positive interactions with teachers because they may have a few more barriers going on. And so that one-on-one recognition of, hey kid, I appreciate what you're doing. You know, it shows that you really care about your schoolwork and that you care about the learning environment. You know, thank you for that. You know, not every kid gets that coming up through the school district. So I think that, you know, that's important, but sure, it could be used whole class too, but that individuation, that more student-centered, like you said, is the focus.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the feedback.
Any other questions for Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I have it's not specific to that per se, except that we had talked about having like wellness lounges on campuses. Are we anywhere with that?
No. Wellness lounges?
Yeah, I thought it had come up multiple times, and I know at Merced High, I had been approached. They were asking me about gaining some funding to do it, and it wasn't a really big deal. It was just taking an empty classroom. One of the teachers at BUHAC has done it in her room and just turned it into a safe space for kids to go when they're having it.
I mean, we have classrooms that are like that.
Yeah.
I mean, where teachers have done that on their own.
I know that at Atwater High School, they were working on that. And I know that Merced has had discussions about it too.
Thank you.
Just seems like a really good idea, and in particular with kids coming back now in various different states of mind, it might be really helpful. Thanks, Christy.
Okay, we'll move on to Employee Association comment period, and we do have comments from both associations. So I'll start with DTA. President Pickle, board members, superintendent, and cabinet. In the previous addresses to this group, we have expressed concern about humanitarian issues. I am pleased to address this board today to express the utmost appreciation to our district leadership and our board for the willingness to work with our Teachers Association to protect our most vulnerable teachers and to provide the best education for our students that we can during this unprecedented time in both American history and the history of education, the COVID-19 pandemic. Too often, people get stuck in what they perceive to be their side, their opinion, their team. In politics, this is called partisanship. I like to think of this as people getting walled off in their own bubbles. It seems that in our district's culture, these bubbles are starting to pop. I am encouraged by how we are all, the association and district leadership, working as a team to provide the best and safest education for our students. Specifically, the association would like to commend the district for creating the Virtual Academy pilot, which will ensure that our most vulnerable teachers can continue to provide quality instruction to our community's youth in a distance learning format. This is a demonstration of not only the superb creative leadership that solves problems, but also of compassionate leadership that recognizes the needs of its stakeholders. We would like to thank all who were integral in working to come to an agreement regarding safe work and learning environments for all stakeholders. It is with the most sincere gratitude that we say thank you for listening to our concerns and working with us to address them. And speaking of safety, we would be remiss if we didn't express tremendous gratitude to Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Johnson and their teams for their work in making sure that all MUHSD teachers have had a chance to be vaccinated with at least the first dose before our students return to in-person instruction. In this type of tenacious work to improve safety that ultimately best serves our community. When it comes to serving our students, we believe in the value of multiple perspectives. To this end, the association has had conversations with district leadership about concerns regarding implicit bias lessons provided to our student population. We want to create an effective and safe environment for these extremely important discussions with our students. The DTA feels very strongly that we need to proceed with these lessons as laid out in the LCAP plan, but we need for these lessons to be delivered in the best possible circumstances. When these concerns were brought to district leadership, they were heard. The association, together with district leadership, have committed to come together to improve the plans for this very vital work. Thank you for your thoughtful participation in these unprecedented circumstances of our lifetime. We can continue to be productive allies moving forward beyond the pandemic if we continue to have collegial dialogue. We contend that the walling of oneself off in metaphorical bubbles is a bane of a productive, compassionate society. Therefore, we hope that we can continue the free exchange of concerns, ideas, and information with no presuppositions for the betterment of those we serve, the students of the MUHSD. Sincerely, MUHSDTA. Thank you for your comment. And next we have CSDA. Good evening, President Pickle, board members, Mr. Peterson, and cabinet. Given the critical role of classified employees in reopening our schools and addressing the learning loss caused by COVID-19, classified are ready to return to learn in person to help close the learning gap safely and effectively to educate our students. We just want to make sure the district keeps in mind when compensating employees, whether it be summer school or Saturday school, all groups need to be recognized. If you compensate one, you have to compensate all. Our district is doing some wonderful things under the leadership of Mr. Peterson, but often when things are moving fast, we forget about the hardworking people behind the scenes. We would like to thank Tony and his IT guys for all they do. We would also like to thank Mr. Calderon for his continued phone calls acknowledging classified's hard work. It's been said by several members how they appreciated the call. It made their day. Also, Christy Johnson, with the help of Brooke, the nurses and classified employees, put on an awesome shot clinic. Thank you for a wonderful job. The negotiation team has submitted our Sunshine Survey to the district, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to bargain in good faith. Also, there is money allocated to schools for hiring more paraprofessionals to help in the classroom to close the gap on the learning loss, and we hope that our district takes advantage of this. We meet with the cabinet once a month to share things that are going on in our district, and we plan on meeting the 17th of this month to share our concerns along with the great things we hear. On a final note, we forgot to wish Mr. Lopez a happy birthday in December. Happy belated birthday. Respectfully, Chapter 252 E-Board. Thank you for your comment.
Yes, thank you, B, in Chapter 252.
Yes, thank you both for your comments and happy belated birthday. Richard.
Yeah, happy belated birthday, Richard. Anyone else have a birthday?
All right, next we have donations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that first. So a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Aaron, seconded by Richard. Go ahead and call for the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an I.
Did it post yet?
Got it.
Pardon? Did it post?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. I'm an I don't know. Okay. I think I timed out, perhaps.
Did it time us out, Leslie? No.
I don't think so.
No, we've got, no, we have 4. So motion carries 3-1. Okay.
Merced Union High School District wishes to thank the following folks for their donations. To Atwater High School, David Bettis, Lori Myers-Jantz, Rebecca Asai, and Patricia Smith. And then, and those were for some different scholarships in different departments. David Freeman to the Bob Mean Scholarship at Merced High. And then across Merced Union High School District, the Lub Mong Center presented by Jennifer Zhang, COC Youth Committee, and the Youth Entrepreneurs Academy.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Ham.
To add to that, Mrs. Pickle, just real quick. Mr. Peterson, will you be acknowledging Tony Thomas before the meeting? Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Arjun. Moving on to the action agenda, first item, second interim report with Dr. Weimer.
Good evening again, and I'm going to go fairly quickly through some of these since this is the third time you've seen this slide this year. So I'll stop on a few of them to get the highlights. Again, this is one of the things that's unique to this particular year. You'll see that the 10,152 is frozen. So even though we are up in enrollment, our ABA for this year will stay at 10,152. We will expect it to go up next year though, because we are up students this year and we are expecting to go up students again next year.
So they froze it in time, but that seems to only make sense if you lost students or stayed the same. There's no additional funding if you increase?
They created a fix for schools that were going up and increasing, but what they said was if you put it into your original budget that you thought you were going to go up, then you might be able to ask for funding. And most districts do not do that. Until the kids show up, they don't add it into their budget projections. And so very few schools were able to take advantage of
including us.
Yeah. Including us, yeah. Because the problem with that is if you budget for an increase that you're expecting and the kids don't show, you don't get that money. And there's no way to get that back. The 0% LCFF COLA there, I'm going to get to that when we see the COLA for the out years, and I'll have a little bit of comments to share on that particular one. And on the multi-year one, I'm going to show where the deferrals are and the expected income and what effect that's going to have on us. And let me get to that screen really quickly. So that's the one everybody really wants to see. Which would be this one right here. So if we compare the first interim, the second interim, the projected budget, and then for next year and then 1 year out, you're still going to see these large balances at the end of the year. And we do want to qualify here where you see the transfers in. Those are where we're transferring money to cover the deferrals. And the budget that the governor proposed gets rid of all of the deferrals, but except for the June one. But that's not law yet. And so the recommendation from auditors are you leave those deferrals in there until it actually becomes a budget bill, which usually happens after we pass our budget. So we still have to plan for all of the deferrals and still have the transfers in and the transfers out, which makes those large balances down at the bottom. And that's kind of confusing. We probably will still have them in there when we do the budget because they will not pass the state budget by the time we're passing our budget. But when we get the first interim of next year, we will have taken most of those out because the only month that they are going to defer is right now, as long as they pass it that way, is the June budget. So we won't get paid in June, so we have enough cash to pay our bills in June. And then once we move over into the next year in August, they'll pay us that money back. So those are what those big balances are down at the bottom. Some of that will then change because when the deferrals go away, we do have the money coming in from the December passage of the CARES 2, or whatever they wanted to call that particular act. So we will be getting one-time funds that will again go to the bottom line and then be used in 21-22 as well. So we also have the state budget agreement that they just did last week, which will provide us money for testing, covering our testing and reopening costs, and then also for extended learning. We will be bringing you a proposal on how to use those funds before June 1st, so that means we'll have it for you at the May board meeting. The state has not released the template yet. So as soon as they get that template out, we can start working on that, and we'll have that, and that'll show you how we're going to use those state funds. One of the things that is going to confuse people a lot is on this particular slide right here. It says that for 21-22 that the COLA is 3.84, and that's kind of true and kind of not true. What they're doing is we did not get a COLA this year. Our COLA was 0. And so they're actually going to give us a 2.5% COLA for this year, but they're not going to give us the money. Then they're going to give us a 1.34 COLA for next year, And so then they'll give us both years' money starting next year. So they're gonna say they're giving us a COLA this year, but not any money, and that COLA will actually start next year. So it's not really 3.84 next year, it's 2.5 this year, we just don't get it, and 1.34 for next year. You can see the STRS and FERS rates there as they continue to go back up. And then you have each of the ending balances, and do we have the money in there yet? We can look at our attention to Fund 43 right there with that $20 million expenditure sitting there. That is going to be the capital facility. Get to the last part. We do have a positive certification, which means we will be able to pay our bills for 3 years with no problem, which is the main point. And so the superintendent does recommend that you approve the positive certification and adopt the second interim.
So moved.
Second. Okay, I'll call for a vote.
Sorry, I was sleeping.
I'm an aye, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Okay, next item is hours. This is Merced County School Boards Association Executive Board Member. So we need to elect someone to serve on the board, and from what I understand, it's been Mr. Lopez for 5 years.
Yes.
You don't want to go for 6?
I'm not opposed to it because I represent our district too at Merced River, so I'm good with it. Yeah, fine.
Is there anybody that
Once.
that wants to fight him for it? Thank you, Richard. That's all I can say. Thank you. I move
Okay.
that Trustee Lopez continue his tenure as the MCSBA representative for MUHSC. Okay, you okay? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and second that.
Yeah.
And we'll call for a vote. That's really awesome. Thank you. No, thank you. And I'm an aye again. Let's just, oh, there we go. All right, I'll sit there. I thought you were stepping back and I was going to have to step up.
Next year.
Okay, when you're ready. Okay, motion carries 4-0. All right, 2021-22 recruitment and hiring incentive proposal. Mrs. Ballinger.
Good evening again. In response to anticipated need for recruiting and hiring staff for the 21-22 school year, the district has developed a recruitment and hiring incentive plan. This plan addresses items under Board Goal 4 of the Local Control Accountability Plan, ensure the recruitment and retention of highly qualified workforce. This proposal offers an incentive for a hard-to-fill position in our district, which is a speech language pathologist, and that position is hard to fill everywhere in California. So the approval of this proposal will release the district to begin to utilize the plan in early recruitment efforts. So the recommended action is that the superintendent recommends the Board of Trustees approve the recruitment and hiring incentive proposal for the 2021-2022 hiring process for a speech language pathologist position.
Is there a clause in there that they must stay with the district for a specific amount of time, or that they get the payment after 6 months or a year or something? I'm absolutely not opposed. I know how incredibly challenging it is to find speech pathologists. I know before COVID, a lot of districts had Zoom sessions for students because they couldn't hire someone. But I just don't want us to be in a trap of paying this big bonus and then having them decide they don't like us. Or they don't.
There are 3 requirements. They have to be a new employee to the district. They have to speech, language, and pathology credential needs to be verified by September 1st. And then they must remain employed with us for 2 full school years, or otherwise they're subject to repayment of the bonus.
So when would they get the bonus, Mrs. Ballinger? At the end, at the beginning, at the end, when they sign? I mean, because if they're not up to par after 1 year, I mean, they're gonna walk away with $7,500.
Well, they would be subject to repayment if they walk away after a year, because they do agree to stay for 2 years. So it is a signing bonus, so they would get it at the beginning.
Subject to repayment is different than forfeiture. I don't know. I feel like maybe the language is a little too loose.
And then also, as Trustee Ham mentioned, you know, with not having many speech pathologists out there, is $7,500 enough to entice somebody to come to MUHSD? Or is that like just an average that, you know, that other districts are offering?
That's where we can start, and then if we don't get somebody, I guess we could come back and ask for more.
Okay.
But I think,
Mrs. Johnson, you want to comment on that?
Sure, Mandy, I think it was 3 years ago, I don't remember, that we tried this, and we didn't even get a single applicant. So I'm desperate to find somebody at this point. So Melissa Bowler, our lead psychologist, has agreed to kind of reach out to some programs like at UOP to their students that are about to graduate and try and recruit somebody. But we desperately need somebody. We did an online program and it's not very successful.
I'm open to raising it to 10,000, but paying it in increments, like, I don't know, every year or every 6 months or whatever that they're with.
How was the 7,500 determined? What's that based on?
I think that 3 years ago, I just threw it out there.
and we would
really, that's the thought process behind it.
Yes, exactly.
Is it honest answer? And you got no applicants with that bonus.
No.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Even with the bonus there?
No applicants.
Okay.
What is the pay? Like, is it an entry level? Or, I mean, if someone has spent 20 years with another district, would they consider moving here?
No, because other districts pay more for their speech pathologists than ours does.
Well, do we need to maybe raise the pay for the position in addition to the bonus?
So
Is that a bargaining thing?
it's currently on our certificated salary schedule.
So doing a sign-in bonus, what would a sign-in bonus amount take to equal that of a comparable district?
Well, when I looked at nearby districts, it's kind of, they're kind of all over the place. Like to the south of us, we're paying more. To the north of us, we're paying a little bit less. One district to the north of us, it's on the management scale. It's just kind of, there wasn't really a consistent amount that was more than us.
Hey, Ms. Ballinger, are we currently using SLEA or are we using our own people for that?
We have one speech language pathologist, and then we also use speech language pathology associates as our online provider.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
And so are we hiring basically one position for the whole district?
We have one position now, but her caseload, the CDE, the caseload is 55 students to one speech pathologist, and we're at 130. So
Wow.
that's why we contracted with the online company to provide the services, but that has been, it's been a nightmare. So that's why I brought it back up to Mandy and asked if we could look at this again.
How much?
Go ahead, Richard.
How much do we currently get on that contract for the online services?
It's well over $100,000 a year. Well over.
And this is posted right now?
No, we haven't posted it because we wanted to post it with the signing bonus.
Okay, so no applicants refers to a previous posting. Okay, well,
I like Julio's suggestion, to break it up. Maybe it's a $5,000 signing bonus and another $5,000 at the end of the first year, and they forfeit it if they leave before 2 years are up.
How about the beginning of the second year, so.
Beginning of the
If we-
second
if we
year,
let them go
sure.
in, we don't pay the
Right.
75.
Sure, there you go,
Well, that-
beginning of the second year.
It's an incentive, yeah.
Outstanding,
Mhm.
5 and 5.
yeah, yeah.
So do we need,
Do we need to amend it?
a motion,
As
amended
amended,
motion?
Okay.
You got that, Mrs. Ballinger, as amended?
I move to approve as amended.
Are we gonna increase the amount?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
we're increasing it to, if I understand, we're increasing the amount to $10,000. We'll pay $5,000 at signing and $5,000 at the start of the second year.
You got it.
And it's forfeited if they leave the district before the end of the second year.
Yeah.
And I'll second that, Ms. Johnson, so that once you guys post it, if you guys can, I guess, give us an update by the next board meeting, how that process is going, and maybe we need to revisit it and increase that amount to, try to get somebody here.
Sounds good.
One clarification though. What amount are they going to forfeit? The full amount or just the next year's amount?
I would think whatever they didn't work, so if they worked 1 year and got 5,000, they didn't work the second year, they just don't get the second 5.
Yeah.
I would think.
I agree with that. I just wanted to clarify that we put that in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Julio.
We would spend more in lawyers trying to get the 5,000.
Yeah. There's a breaking point there, yes. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second, so we'll call for a vote then. Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you both. Next, we have the bid award for Merced High School Football Stadium Phase 2 project. Mr. Calderon.
President Pickle, on March 2nd, 2021, Merced Union High School District opened bids for Merced High School Football Stadium Phase 2 project. Of the 6 competitive bids MUHSD received, Taylor Backhoe Service Contractors was the low responsive and responsible bidder. The superintendent recommends that the board award the project Merced High School Football Stadium Phase 2 project to TBS, Taylor Backhoe Service Contractors, the low responsive and responsible bidder.
So moved.
Second.
I'll call for a vote.
And just, if I may, there's a lot of fantastic people that work for us that worked on this project. Paul Hogue and Rob Scheit and the work that they put in. But they also did it, we're getting this bid because they worked very hard with other community volunteers to make sure that we removed any kind of fluff out of this bid. I'd just like to recognize Pete Gonzalez and his family for just being a constant helper to the Bear family.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That's great, thank you.
Fantastic that this is going locally too. It's really,
Yep.
really awesome.
Okay. Any other discussion on the item? Okay. Okay, motion carries 4-0. Next, we have revision to board policy 6145.2, athletic competition. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, I was here asking you to revise this board policy in November of 2020, expecting that we were gonna have a season that would last through the third quarter. And unfortunately, we didn't. The law still allows us, you asked me at that time that if there was any difficulty to come back and ask again. So today what I'm doing is I'm asking the law AB 908 allows boards to allow a student who does not achieve satisfactory educational progress in the previous grading period to remain eligible to participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities during a probationary period only through the third quarter of 2020-21 school year. Tonight's revision would extend the probationary period through the fourth quarter of 2021 school year. The superintendent brings before the Board of Trustees revision to Board Policy 6145.2 athletic competition for a first reading with a possibility of adoption.
So moved.
Second.
And you want to waive
Do I-
the second reading?
Yeah, do you want to waive the second reading?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
I actually had someone tell me today that, that high schools are having difficulty putting teams together because they don't have enough eligible athletes. And I said, that's not true in Merced Union High School District. I know we're voting on this tonight, so, you know.
We've been getting a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I don't know, they weren't up on maybe 908.
Okay. So we have a motion to waive the second read and approve, and a second. So, and, is there any other discussion on it? Okay, we'll call for the vote, please. Okay, motion carries 4-0. And,
Mrs. Pickle,
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
got a text message from Mr. Valadez that says that he has to leave,
okay,
so he'll be leaving the meeting.
okay, thank you, Julio.
Good night.
Bye, Julio.
Right.
Next we have a purchase of Chromebooks, Dr. Weimer.
So the last action item that we have for you this evening is the purchase of 3,000 Chromebooks. We did a purchase earlier in the year using the relief funds, and we have those in our warehouse ready to go, but we have been using more than we thought we were going to need for broken ones. We don't have our Chromebook repair centers going, so we've had some need for those. We also have some needs at East Campus, Yosemite and Sequoia for some newer machines. And so we will not have enough for the freshman class with what we have remaining. So this will replenish the stock. And again, this will be from COVID funds. And this means we will not have to use regular funds to pay for these for this year or next year.
So moved, Mr. Weimer.
Second. Okay, then, we'll go ahead and call for a vote.
Let me, adjust the roll before I do that.
Sure.
Dr. Weimer, even during this replacement of Chromebooks for the broken ones, are we still pushing, or do those kids have like the, what's that $25 plan, the coverage?
You know, the
Insurance?
The insurance.
Yeah. We actually do have one repair center going that, it's not going fast enough.
Gotcha, okay.
And it's actually cheaper to replace them.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah. Did you open it up
Next
already?
graders needs to be fixed, it's not too bad. A seniors, which is 4 years old, needs to be fixed, that's a difference.
Okay.
What type of an increase are you seeing in the damage and loss over a regular year?
You know, it's hard to tell because they've accumulated. And they're, you know, so when I saw the numbers, they're obviously substantially higher than what we've had before. But that's because before, they were coming in every month.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't, it's about the same, but it seems like a lot right now because it just piled up.
It's all at once, yeah.
Pam, did you get your bubble for voting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries 3-0. And superintendent's report, Mr. Peterson.
All right, thank you, President Pickle. First, I want to thank the staff at Yosemite High for their presentation on Nurtured Heart approach. What they have been able to accomplish using Nurtured Heart is nothing short of phenomenal. It's no wonder Yosemite High School is recognized nationally for how that staff has positively impacted so many students, and we are continuing our district-wide expansion, now led by Mr. Johnson. I want to thank Mr. Calderon for his work with activities directors and athletic directors, coming up with, getting athletics off the ground and coming up with options for, a multitude of options for our seniors and really all of our students. I want to give a shout out to all of the county high school superintendents. How this process has worked with athletics is myself and Donna Alley work together with the other superintendents to kind of create the guidelines and the framework of how this is going to work at the county level. She focuses on the small schools and I focus on the large schools, and then that goes down to Scott Wine and Scott Witten, and they meet with all the other ADs to make this all work. So what you're seeing out there does not happen by accident. There's a lot of effort that has gone on behind the scenes, so thanks to all. With regard to, our traditional events, we want them to be as normal as possible. However, we have no idea what the guidelines will be at those points in the year, and no matter what, we will work to give our seniors the recognition they deserve. We received good news today regarding band. They may move forward with in-person participation, and they will be following the athletic guidelines that have been set forth by the state. Thanks again to Mr. Calderon and Melissa Miller for the updates regarding the solar and our facility projects. As you heard emphasized, the main considerations for the facility projects are equity across the district, standardization across the sites, and safety and/or functionality. We've had some key projects completed and look forward to the completion of the current projects underway. And we will bring you that list back next month for as an action item. Thank you, Cheryl Gorman, for your continued work related to developing an innovative solution to instructional options going forward, all the different options we're looking at. It's going to take some time to create a structure that offers the type of a personalized approach that will meet the diverse needs of all of our students. So you saw tonight, takes patience on Cabinet's part to do the research and the groundwork and to get the feedback and to produce quality solutions to bring to you. I do want to be very clear that next year will not be like this year. Distance learning will not be combined with in-person. This is my biggest thank you of the night. I want to thank Tony Thomas for his leadership, not only on the Wi-Fi project, but over all the years he has been with the Merced Union High School District. I remember that guy when he was the assistant of somebody else's assistant 15 or 20 years ago, and he has risen to become a true leader in the technology field, and we just, I can't thank him enough. I'm part of the, not the ease, but easier than some districts have had it during the pandemic, was due to him and his vision and making sure we had all the things necessary in place, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So Tony, thank you, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. I stated in the last edition of MUHSD Matters that there's something different about this upcoming spring season. Wherever you go, there's an air of optimism. Man, how that's changed in just a couple months. Athletics are back, our students are returning to the classroom next week, our COVID numbers are down, way down, and vaccines are more readily available. I think we have almost turned the corner. 1 year ago, we closed down schools not knowing how long it would last. I want to thank the board for its leadership throughout the entire ordeal, as well as our entire staff for their resilience and adaptability. There's no doubt in my mind that we are stronger as a district today than we were 1 year ago. The board and all employees need to understand the state continues to change policies and expectations that we have to react to. I don't see that going away. So we're all going to have to remain nimble. When we have to have that special meeting for this or that, it's usually because of those changing expectations. Finally, I want to recognize Christy Johnson, Mandy Ballinger, Derek Daly, our school nurses, Brooke Albert, and the entire COVID team for all the work they've done. Thompson, sorry. Maiden name. Keeping staff informed and getting everyone vaccinated. Superb job. And a special shout out to Christy for all her effort in aggressively rounding up the vaccine locations the last 2 weeks. We could not have gotten everyone vaccinated without that extra effort on her part. And speaking of her, I'm going to let her finish up my report.
So staff surveys went out in December and March to determine which employees were interested in receiving a COVID vaccine. I am pleased to report that the district was able to reach out to offer vaccines to almost every employee who expressed interest. Approximately 650 of our 1,050 employees have received the first dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. Today, some even received the one-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Some employees secured vaccines on their own, but the majority of our staff were able to get vaccinated because of our community partnerships. I want to give a huge thank you to Castle Family Health Center, Get Well Urgent Care, Merced County Department of Public Health, and last but not least, Dr. Asadi. In addition, I want to thank our district nurses, Tamara Simmons, Karina Tovar, Jody Jenkins, Myrna Polito, Tur Yang, Ka Vang, and Corinne Hurtado, who actually vaccinated our staff. Brooke Thompson and Renee Bettis, who assisted with the clinic, and our health aides, B. McCutcheon, Celeste Torres, Linda Vaya, Alyssa Zhang, Stacy Guerra, Annette Vaca, and Leslie Rodriguez, who helped monitor staff and assisted with the vaccinations. I also want to thank Brooke Thompson and Leslie Rohrbach and Renee Bettis, who helped me make hundreds of phone calls to schedule our employees for the vaccines, sometimes with only a few hours notice. We couldn't have gotten so many employees vaccinated so quickly without such a great team. We were also able to host a community event at Buhack Colony High School, where more than 800 residents, including educators, were able to get their vaccines. Again, MUHSD staff stepped up to the plate. School nurses, health aides, and various staff members from Buhack helped make this a successful event. Our next community vaccination event will be March 27th at Atwater High School. All in all, this has been a great effort to get us back to in-person learning.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy. Okay. Then I think we just have board comments. So, Mrs. Ham, did you have anything?
Dr. Aguilar, thanks for the LCAP meetings, and I'm sure we'll get a recap on those in the not too distant future. And I specifically wanted to say thank you as well to Christy, because she asked some questions of students about mental health that I thought was really telling. And I know she's making a tremendous effort to find unique ways to reach students, because we know, well, they all said they were struggling when we talked to them in that LCAP meeting. So that's much appreciated. I am so looking forward to schools opening next week.
When will students and families be informed what schedule kids are on? Do we know? Is that imminent? I would imagine. I have two and I haven't heard, so I don't know if it's the same, different.
If they haven't, they will be in the next 2 days.
Okay.
By Friday.
By Friday. They're in school. It's awesome. I am loving athletics. It's so great to be on campuses and see students and practices and coaches, and it'll be exceptional to hear the band next week start to get going. I can actually, from my house, hear the drum line when they practice, and it's been so silent, especially, I mean, even when you're on campuses for different events, to not hear the band. So I'm elated. Thank you to the district for pushing to get bands back. The only other thing I wanted to ask about was the SAT test, and I know it is not being required by CSUs and UCs, but we have a lot of students who nevertheless prepared for it and or want to go out of state, and I just would request the district do whatever it can to make our sites available for testing.
Thank you. Sam? Lopez?
Yeah. I think just to piggyback off what Mrs. Ham said about an update on the, obviously the LCAP and then the LCT plan, for the next meeting, Dr. Aguilar. And I do appreciate all the work that you and your staff have been doing, hosting those meetings. I think it's fantastic. And also for next month, if we can get an update or even sooner on what the current grades, projected looks like for kids, and then attendance rates, as we transition now into in person. As I mentioned about the East Merced County planning facilities that Aaron and I are part of, if we can schedule something with Melissa and get that conversation going to see what we plan for those dollars that are allocated to us. I also want to publicly thank Tony Thomas for his 20 years of service to MUHSC and supporting me in my district in our time of need, and also to Michelle Stone and her transportation department. Sometimes small districts are stuck with what we have, and it's difficult, and she's always willing to help out, so I appreciate the support there. I, too, am looking forward to March 15th, to welcome our kids back on our campuses. Thank you to all our teachers and staff for doing all that you do on a consistent basis, daily basis, and getting everything ready for Monday morning. And last but not least, do we have protocols in place for, if I were to visit or go to sporting events, or even for public to come out? And I know masks is mandatory, but as far as anything else, when football starts and stuff like that, are we going to be?
Do you need a pass? Is that
No. Like, do we have protocols in place?
Oh, yeah. In fact, we just talked about the football venue protocols to finalize them.
Is it going to be limited to a certain amount of people on the
Yeah, just family.
Oh, just family.
So in most cases, it's just 2 family members per
player.
Per player, yes.
Does that include us too? If we were to go to football game?
No, then each AD has 10 or 20 extra spots on the sideline.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
So you would be one of those.
Okay.
We would just contact them.
Yeah. You just text me or email me, and I can help you with that.
But if you want to go to the big swim meet,
yes.
LCAP and Merced High on Friday.
Okay.
You bring your chair and you sit outside the gate, and when you want to watch a race, you step up and you look through the fence and you wear your mask.
Now,
but it works.
Are those during the day?
Yeah, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
Okay, that works for me.
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you.
And just, if I can jump, just really quickly, it seems like we've gotten so much more attendance at those, and maybe because the whole crowd is on the outside.
You're right, though. You're absolutely right.
No, there is more attendance.
Yeah,
People want to see their
attendance.
kids.
Yes, they do.
And Mr. Peterson, as far as, if any of the 5 of us wanted to go visit campuses after March 15th, same process, right? Just informing you, and then, okay, thank you.
Thank you for those clarifications. Okay, this is my turn. Just a big thank you to everyone. I won't name all the names, but to everyone that's for their efforts and doing what it takes to best serve the staff and students. You guys have just been extraordinary. Thank you to the district and the associations for working together to make all of this happen for staff and students. News about the band, fantastic. Thank you for taking the steps to make that happen for those kids. I'd also like to thank Mr. Thomas. Well wishes to all of those that won't be with us next year, but I just want to thank Mr. Thomas for his service. When I worked here, I worked closely with him. I always appreciated his perspective on the instructional side. You know, he worked on the technical side, but he always had a very, very good grasp of how that integrated with the instruction. And we had some great conversations. He was a great support. I learned a lot from him, and I do wish you well, Tony, and thank you for everything you've done for me, everything you've done for the district, and wish you the best. And my last comment, congratulations to Mr. Peterson. If you don't know, he has advanced to the final round, 25 finalists for the state competition, I guess you call it, for Superintendent of the Year.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations,
Congratulations.
Mr. Peterson, and thank you for your leadership.
Wow, you must have a spy somewhere around.
No?
Not very many people knew about that.
Oh, very good.
Well, now 30 do.
So, and if there's nothing else? Okay, well then we'll go ahead and adjourn at, what time is it? 8:53. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Get to 9.
The only thing that mattered is the time is before 10 o'clock.
Before 10 o'clock.